People schmiggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... Those... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, "I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source." Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, sure, the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work.
It's crap. It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people snuggling
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, this is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. If there is a 16 or 17-year-old in your house, I want to speak to them. I'll tell you why in a second. But if there is, wake them up, get them on air at 11:30. I'll tell you why in a second. 0344 499 1000 is the way to do so. We'll talk to Mark Francois, the Shadow Defence Minister. We'll also be talking about a big survey in the Sunday Times. Starmer's votes for 16-year-olds would give a boost to Corbyn's new party. Also, some really shocking information about the levels of anxiety in 16 and 17-year-old girls. A quarter of them say they suffer from anxiety, up to 34% among girls, worse among girls. Nearly 3 in 5 said they stayed at home from school due to anxiety. We know what this is. It's the legacy of lockdown. We'll talk about that as well. Also, Coldplay have said that they've got to postpone some of their concerts. They're moving that around. Loads of people will have spent a huge amount of money getting to Wembley, but because of lefty unions, well, they're saying that they're going to have a tube strike so people can't get to and from Wembley as well. That's a London story, of course, but there are loads of people coming from right across the country. Also, white working-class school children punished more than any other group. Are they being left behind? And the Archbishop of York says that Nigel Farage needs to stop. Do you think he's right, or do you think Nigel Farage is right? The Church of England's most senior bishop attacking Nigel Farage on immigration. Loads to discuss this morning. Be sure to give me a ring. We're here right through to 1 o'clock. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Plenty to discuss here on Talk between now and 1 o'clock. Stay with us. So that big story in the front page of the Sunday Times, Starmer's votes for 16-year-olds would give a boost to Corbyn's new party. There are loads and loads of 16 and 17-year-olds who want the vote. Most of them that I've been contacting this morning, and my producer Chris have been asleep, and Tommy, the assistant producer. So if there's a 16 or 17-year-old in your house who would like to come on, talk to us, really straightforward, just do it on Zoom. Really straightforward. At 11:30, we're going to talk to a psychotherapist, we're going to talk to a pollster. We'll talk through this, but I want to talk to a young person as well. So if there's one in your house or one you know who would like to come on Zoom, in Vision, give us a ring, 0344 499 1000. We'll get it set up. Ask to speak to Chris and we'll get it set up, and we will make sure that we speak to them. I have a few feelers out, but honestly, all my friends' kids are asleep this morning for some reason. Anyway, listen, the big story that I'm interested in is the Church of England attacking Nigel Farage. This is the most senior bishop, the Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, branding the Reform UK leaders' proposals for mass deportation isolationist, short-term and knee-jerk. Farage said, of course, this week he wants to deport 600,000 migrants through Operation Restoring Justice. He hopes to implement it should his party win the next election. But the Archbishop, who is currently, of course, because of the scandal hit Justin Welby, the current Archbishop, Stephen Cottrell, is the most senior figure in the Church of England in the absence of an Archbishop of Canterbury. He said Mr Farage was not offering a solution to the big issues which are driving people to risk the English Channel crossing. I want to play a clip now of the Archbishop speaking to Sky News. This is what Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, has been saying.
Your response to those people who are saying policy should be you land here unlawfully, you get locked up and you get deported straight away, no ifs, no buts.
Well, I'd say to them, you haven't solved a problem, you've put it somewhere else and you've done nothing to address the issue of what brings people to this country. And so if you think that's the answer, you will discover in due course that all you have done is made the problem worse. So don't misunderstand me. I have every sympathy with those who find this difficult, every sympathy, as I do with those living in poverty. But I don't think we should, we should actively resist the kind of isolationist, short-term, knee-jerk, send them, in this case, send them home.
Let's put a name on it. Is that your message to Mr Farage?
Well, it is. I mean, Mr Farage is saying the things he's saying, but he is not offering any long-term solution to the big issues which are convulsing our world, which lead to this. I see no other way.
Mary in County Down's been in touch on this already. She says this is so on brand for the drippy, guilty, white Anglican leadership. Apparently, if we deport illegal migrants as soon as they land, we're not solving the problem. We're just moving it somewhere else. Yes, Archbishop, that's the point of what Nigel Farage is saying, says Mary. Let's see what Bridget Phillipson thinks of this. She's the Education Secretary. We did ask her on the programme this morning. She apparently doesn't have time. This is what she has to say about what the Archbishop of York has said about Nigel Farage.
There's no sign of the gangs being smashed. In fact, the average number of people coming on a boat has climbed under your administration. So let me ask you again. And this is a straightforward thing. There doesn't have to be a problem with it. There is really no difference between what you're saying and what Mr Farage is saying, is there?
Well, the difference is we'll actually take action to do it. It's one thing to provoke anger, and I understand the frustration. I understand the frustration that people feel, because I understand when they see, for example, asylum hotels and big numbers of people in their community, I understand how that can make people feel. Of course, there can be no excuse for what is rightful protest overstepping the mark. But Nigel Farage and Reform, they don't actually want to sort this problem. It is in their interest. They think their political interests are served by whipping up anger rather than fixing problems.
You keep saying they're whipping up...
them and us is that we'll fix this.
You keep saying they're whipping up anger. The anger is there already.
That is Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, speaking to Trevor Phillips there on Sky News. So what do you make of this? What should the Archbishop have made those comments? This is the Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, branding Nigel Farage isolationist, short-term and knee-jerk. Daniel's in Epsom. He's given us a call on this, 0344 499 1000. Daniel, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say about the Archbishop?
Morning, Peter. I love your show, by the way, mate. How are you?
Thank you. Very well, thanks. Yeah, all good, all good. I hope you're well too. What do you make of this?
Well, what I make of it is it seems that we have a government and an archbishop that are at odds with what I would call the British majority view, okay? So this isn't normal. Thousands of people coming into the country illegally every day, unchecked, unfettered. This isn't normal. This phenomenon has only been around, a few years? 4 or 5 years? I mean, but it's got to the point now where even if you're on the left, even the real hard lefties now they're getting sexually harassed in London, and now they're having their phones stolen, and everyone can see the decline and degradation in our towns and cities, right? Even the lefties are joining people like me that have been saying it for 25, 30 years.
Yeah, it's funny, actually, how many people are now moving to this. I think the debate has shifted. Even The Economist magazine, for example, the high priest of journalistic kind of ideas that there should be, completely free movement, complete economic movement. You've got people who aren't saying this before, saying what you have been saying this for years, Daniel. I know we've spoken before. I have too, and others. This is a problem. You bring a load of people who are from an alien culture into our country. This is an issue, but the Archbishop says that this is short-sighted. Moving them is the wrong thing. I mean, what would your message to the Archbishop be this morning?
Well, my message is that yourself, the Archbishop and the Labour government are completely out of touch with what I would describe as how most Britons think and feel, okay?
Yeah.
And this is the problem. See, all the time when you get a Labour MP on, they're going, well, Reform are just trying to ramp up the rhetoric, and they don't want to solve this problem. I've met Nigel a few times, actually. I've had a pint with him a few times over the years, and he does. He's exactly as straight about this topic as he is on and off camera. That's why he never needs notes, because he believes what he says, unlike this Labour government that are just liars. They're not going to smash the gangs. They're going to keep...
Well, they say 52 of them have been smashed already. Do you not believe them?
I don't believe them. I think it's intentional. It has to be. How can a government, if they work for the people and they know that the British majority don't want and have never wanted illegal immigration, and we want you to be selective with legal migration and cut the numbers. If you know that, and then you purposefully don't do what we ask, then you're at odds with the British people.
And on a number of occasions as well, Daniel. I mean, this is not just a new thing. This was the Brexit referendum. No. This is what the Tories were told in 2010, 2015, 2017, 2019, what Labour have been told in 2024.
And this explains, or this is emblematic and personifies why there's a massive move to reform, because we've tried for 25, 30 years, we've seen our country decline and get worse and degrade. Our towns and cities are not the places that we grew up in. We've been trying to stop that erosion. We've been trying to stem the flow, and we've been voting for it, and we've been ignored for 30 years. So at some point, why are they so surprised everyone's voting reform? They did this. If the Conservative Party had just been conservative and done what we asked them to do, we wouldn't be here.
Well, we're going to ask a Conservative about that in a minute, Daniel. Mark Francois is on the way. He's the Shadow Defence Minister. We'll talk to him. I just want to play one more clip from Bridget Phillipson about Reform UK and whether Reform UK actually will sort this problem or do want to sort this problem. This is her view. She's been on Sky News this morning talking to Trevor Phillips.
There's no sign of the gangs being smashed. In fact, the average number of people coming on a boat has climbed under your administration. So let me ask you again. And this is a straightforward thing. There doesn't have to be a problem with it. There is really no difference between what you're saying and what Mr Farage is saying, is there? Well,
the difference is we'll actually take action to do it. It's one thing to provoke anger, and I understand the frustration.
I'll tell you one of the things.
I understand the frustration that people feel, because I understand when they see, for example, asylum hotels and big numbers of people in their community, I understand how that can make people feel. Of course, there can be no excuse for what is rightful protest overstepping the mark. But Nigel Farage and Reform, they don't actually want to sort this problem. It is in their interest. They think their political interests are served by whipping up anger rather than fixing problems.
You keep saying they're whipping up...
them and us is that we'll fix
You keep saying they're whipping up anger. The anger is there already.
Well, that was Bridget Phillipson there talking about this problem. We'll make sure that we have full debate on that. Andy in Woolwich says, I'm a Christian, I haven't been to church for over 10 years. That Archbishop is exactly the reason why the churches are empty. He should concentrate on getting people back into church and stay out of politics. Martin says the Archbishop of York and the church in general need a dose of realism. Margaret says the Archbishop should shut up. They have not learned from the previous woke Welby. Just do what you're supposed to do, says Margaret in Birmingham. Ian says the Archbishop should accept that nearly every war in the world has religion involved somewhere, if not the main cause. And Jane says the Archbishop should take the lead and house some asylum seekers on his vast land as well. One more before the break. Joe in Norfolk says, regarding the head of the church complaining about Farage, ask the church how many of the church's estates have allowed migrants to be housed with them. The church overall is very wealthy. The church is the first place you would expect to offer help, but they don't. Hypocrites, says Joe from Norfolk. Plenty to discuss. We'll talk to Mark Francois, the Shadow Defence Minister, next here on Talk. Stay with us.
who effectively told us they are scared for their children's safety in the area, and they are worried about what the next steps are and what's going to happen. Obviously, we don't quite know the ramifications of today's hearing yet. We get to see how it progresses and what that appeal might mean for the future. But I mean, the fact the government is allowed to appeal, that could have, if that wasn't the case, then it would effectively tear apart the whole hotel system and leave the whole asylum hotel system in tatters.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots about the Archbishop of York criticising Nigel Farage, saying that Farage's approach on immigration is wrong. Michael says Yorkie man needs to stay in his box and concentrate on promoting Christianity. Quite a lot of people getting in touch about young people as well. Natalie in Lancashire says, it's not just girls with anxiety. My 16-year-old son suffered anxiety year 10 and 11. He's just left school now and managed to get 4 GCSE passes despite hardly being at school. Well done to him for getting those GCSE passes. Anxiety is a dreadful thing. It's something I suffer from myself. I take pills for it every single day. And if you are feeling you can't do something, you just feel totally powerless. But these statistics today in the Sunday Times, there are a quarter of 16 and 17-year-olds saying they suffer from anxiety, 34% among girls. Nearly 3 in 5 young people said they had stayed at home from school due to anxiety, 17% admitting they avoid going to school often. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the programme with someone who is a teenager as well. Thank you to everybody who's been in touch about that. We're going to get that sorted out. Thank you as well to Glenn in Plymouth about the church. He says, as always, the church is so out of touch with most of the population and just doesn't get the feeling about illegal immigration within the British public, says Glenn in Plymouth. We had some criticism of the Conservatives before the break. Let's speak to one of their shadow front bench. Mark Francois is here with me in the studio. Mark, good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, good morning.
What do you make about the Archbishop of York's comments? I gather you know him personally. He has been very critical of Nigel Farage's approach. Is it Christian what he's doing? Is it what is a Christian approach to immigration, do you think?
Well, I think it's... Look, I know the Archbishop. He used to be the Bishop of Chelmsford for many years. He comes from Southend. It's not unchristian to tell the truth. And Farage has been quite frank about the challenge that we face. And we've had 50,000 cross-channel migrants since Labour came to power, and people are rightfully furious. They don't see why they should have to work hard and pay their taxes when a boatload of people whose provenance we're unsure about, you know, come across the channel illegally and then get put on a coach and taken to a 4-star hotel. I think the Archbishop needs to understand why people are so angry about that. And they definitely are, and I see that in my email inbox as an MP every day.
He says it's short-sighted. In fact, let's just play again what the Archbishop of York was saying. This was to Sky News, and he was interviewed by Trevor Phillips, and we're going to play this clip just so people can get a sense of what the Archbishop of York is saying. Then we'll go back to Mark. This is the Archbishop of York, Peter Cardwell, speaking to Sky News.
The response to those people who are saying policy should be you land here unlawfully, you get locked up and you get deported straight away, no ifs, no buts.
Well, I'd say to them, you haven't solved a problem. You've put it somewhere else, and you've done nothing to address the issue of what brings people to this country. And so, if you think that's the answer, you will discover in due course that all you have done is made the problem worse. So don't misunderstand me. I have every sympathy with those who find this difficult, every sympathy, as I do with those living in poverty. But I don't think we should, we should actively resist the kind of isolationist, short-term, knee-jerk, you know, send them, in this case, send them home.
Let's put a name on it. Is that your message to Mr Farage?
Well, it is. I mean, Mr Farage is saying the things he's saying, but he is not offering any long-term solution to the big issues which are convulsing our world, which lead to this. I see no other way.
Is there anything in what the Archbishop of York says, Mark?
Well, he hasn't offered a solution either. I mean, look, I've known Nigel for years. He's more than capable of looking after himself. He doesn't need me to come on here and defend him. But the situation is we have thousands of people coming across the channel illegally. You know, why should someone who wants to come to this country to work here have to go through all of the legal processes and all of the immigration procedures to get a visa to come here, say, to work, when people can get on a boat and come across the channel? And Labour are never going to fix it. Why? Because Starmer and Lord Hermer, his Attorney General, and others are absolute disciples of the Human Rights Act. You've had 3 prominent Labour politicians over the weekend come out and say Starmer's got to do something about the Human Rights Act, right? David Blunkett, Jack Straw, Charles Clarke, none of those are Tory stooges. Even they're telling him, you've got former Home Secretaries in there, they're telling him he's got to do something. He can't, because in his mental universe, the Human Rights Act is like Holy Writ, it's sacred text. So that means they'll keep coming up with gimmicks like the 17 in 1 out scheme. Every week or so there'll be another gimmick, but they won't address the central problem. The boats will keep coming and the public will get angrier and angrier. And I think that is something, I say with respect, the Archbishop needs to understand.
What I see, and I've been in this job for 4 years now, what I see, Mark, is an erosion of people's trust in politicians, in the judiciary as well. We haven't even talked about the Bell Hotel. I see people who are just not trusting the institutions of society and not feeling national pride either. They feel a national pride, they're proud of this country, but would they fight for this country as well? There's very interesting comments from Barry Davies, the legendary commentator, of course, 87 years old now, covered 10 World Cups and 17 Olympic Games. He's the last surviving commentator from England's victorious campaign in 1966. He says he fears for his grandchildren because of the state of the country, and he has called for national service to come back. Similarly, the Sunday Express has done a survey saying 2 in 3 adults would not fight for Britain if it came under attack. A shocking study has revealed. Mark, what do you make of all of this?
Well, why at the moment would anyone want to join the British Army when Labour is going after Northern Ireland veterans who fought terrorism in Northern Ireland bravely for many years? They now want to throw those people to the wolves and get Labour backbenchers to vote for a measure which would also, by the way, make it easier for Gerry Adams to sue the British taxpayer. And if people are opposed to that, if they'd rather be with the veterans than Gerry Adams, please go on the parliamentary petition, sign it. You can literally do it now. If you want to defend our Northern Ireland veterans, go on the parliamentary website, sign the petition right now. We're on 195,000 nearly. We really want to get to 200,000. So there's a disincentive for people to join the armed forces. But if you go back to the 1930s, and I take some heart from this, we famously had what was known as the Oxford Union debate, when the students at Oxford University voted by over 2 to 1 for a motion that said this House under no circumstances would fight for king and country. We know a lot of the people who were at that debate. 7 years or so later, most of them then signed up to fight in the armed forces, you know, when the threat of Hitler was apparent. So I do believe that if it really came to it, the people of this country, including our young people, if we were under genuine attack here, would rally to the colours and would defend this country, because history shows that's what they did in the past, even after a decade of appeasement.
It's fascinating that we almost have this weird relationship between people who don't like, I mean, as you correctly say, the army throwing people under a bus, the problems with housing. We have a lot of veterans who watch this programme, a lot of people I know who are in the army or armed service families who watch this programme, who want what's best for our boys and girls who serve this country.
Yes.
There is a patriotism there. There is a real desire to serve the country in some way.
And by the way, it's the veterans that came up with the petition, not us. It's their petition.
Yeah.
So,
just on the Northern Ireland point, actually, can I just ask you, I mean, do you accept there were people who did there were nearly 300,000 people who served in uniform in Northern Ireland over the course of the Troubles, the vast majority with great bravery and distinction, but some fell below that standard, some did things they shouldn't have done. What would you do with them?
Well, every single fatality was investigated at the time. Remember, the soldiers had to comply with something called the yellow card. The IRA had no yellow card. And after the Good Friday Agreement, most of those alleged terrorists, who were still, quotes, on the run, were given letters of comfort by Blair. There's no letters of comfort for our soldiers. So this is completely lopsided. It is two-tier justice. It's one rule for former IRA terrorists, alleged, and it's another rule for British Army veterans.
But if you had someone like, for example, in Bloody Sunday, which David Cameron famously apologised for, I don't want to get into individual cases, obviously.
Well, that's coming up for trial, so it's sub judice, so we can't.
OK, well, let's choose another example. Right. Let's say, let's choose a hypothetical example of someone who did fall below the standards, who did perhaps shoot somebody, do something they shouldn't have done in a warlike, not war, but a warlike scenario, obviously. Should they be prosecuted?
All of these things were investigated at the time. And where people...
A lot of those investigations, such as by the Royal Military Police, were not done as they should have been done.
Well, I would dispute that. But nevertheless, there have been isolated examples where people, as you put it, fell below the standard and were prosecuted. I don't think anyone who fought in Northern Ireland to uphold the rule of law would suggest that anyone who did do that, there should be no consequences. But what is happening in reality is that many people at the behest of Sinn Féin, are trying to endlessly investigate and reinvestigate British. But why? Because they want to change history. They want to change the perception of what happened during the Troubles. So in very many cases, those instances are politically motivated, and we have to be realistic about that. But to come back to where we came in, why would any rational people join the army if they have a Labour government that hasn't got their back? Why would you do it? So I don't think Labour should carry on with this. I think they should drop it. I don't think Labour backbenchers, particularly with the way things are at the moment, want to go and vote to do Gerry Adams a favour. And interestingly, the so-called remedial order, the parliamentary device that Labour were going to use to do this, now appears to be stalled. So let's hope they have the common sense to drop it when the House comes back.
Let's ask you just a couple of questions about what the Education Secretary is saying this morning. She says the wider system is resolutely failing white working class children. Do you agree with her?
Well, I think one of the things the Conservative government can be proud of was the revolution we brought about in education in the academies sector. And we've now got, this might surprise some of your readers, some of the best reading and math schools in the world in this country. Around 90% of our schools are good or outstanding, or were very recently. So I think that's one thing we can be proud of. But there are certain areas, certain inner city areas in particular, where white working class kids are falling behind. And we need to do more about that. But I think Labour's plans to reduce the powers of academies and, to give the state more control over individual schools are exactly the wrong way to go. And interestingly, there are many head teachers and teachers who would tell you exactly the same thing if they were sitting in this chair.
There's a big survey in the Sunday Times today saying 3 in 5 children, 16 and 17-year-olds, not really children, young people, had stayed at home from school due to anxiety. 17% admitted they avoid going to school often. 42% spend more than 6 hours a day on their phone. Do you accept that at least some of this, some of the problems we have with our young children, is to do with the legacy of lockdown?
Undoubtedly. Once we were allowed to start going back and visiting schools after we came out of lockdown, I went to one of my local secondaries, a very good school called Swain Park, and I said to the head, "What's your biggest problem?" And she said, "The mental health of my kids." And undoubtedly COVID had societal changes, and so we do have a challenge there.
Do you think the Conservative government should have locked down? Do you think that was a mistake?
I think in the first instance we had to. I mean, my wife worked in a hospital. I remember her coming home saying, "You've got to do something, we're just being overrun." So, I voted for the lockdown initially, but my view was it went on too long, and I became one of those COVID skeptics, if you like, that was voting, to lift the restrictions. So I believe we had to do something to stop the spread of the virus, but with the benefit of hindsight, which makes geniuses of all of us, doesn't it? I think probably it went on for too long, and I think we didn't understand what the medium to long-term consequences of that would be, and I think that we're probably dealing with those now.
Mark, as always, thank you very much. That's Mark Francois MP, who's the Shadow Defence Minister. If you have thoughts on what he has to say there about young people, about conscription, would you fight for your country? Is that something that you'd feel comfortable doing, or that you would encourage others to do? We're also talking about what the Archbishop of York has said today, Stephen Cottrell. He says that Nigel Farage's plan on immigration is ill thought out and knee-jerk. What do you make of his comments? 0344 499 1000. Give us a call, let us know what you think. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch searching for a teenager. I think we found one now, and at 11:30 we will speak to a teenager and a psychotherapist and a pollster about this big story on the front page of the Sunday Times. Starmer's votes for 16-year-olds would give a boost to Corbyn's new party. I'm much more concerned. I'm less concerned about votes at 16 and 17, although I'm very, very happy to have that debate, than the fact that nearly 3 in 5 respondents said they'd stayed at home from school due to anxiety. Surely that is the legacy of lockdown. We'll talk to our debate desk panellists about that in just a second. In the meantime, let me just read you something from Ben in Belfast, who says, we need to be very clear in discussions this morning. Illegal immigrants aren't coming to the UK because of war, famine and human rights abuses in other distant countries. If safety and sanctuary was the driving factor, they would stop in the first safe country. They're coming here and forcing their way in because we offer a soft landing, hotels, clothes, benefits, free healthcare and a very high chance of being allowed to stay and access housing and long-term welfare payments. This is not about saving lives, as the pro-immigration activists would have us believe. Let's not indulge in the twisted, woke narrative of the left and the Archbishop. This is after the comments of the Archbishop of York, Peter Cardwell. Let's hear what he has been saying to Sky News.
Your response to those people who are saying policy should be, you land here unlawfully, you get locked up, and you get deported straight away, no ifs, no buts?
Well, I'd say to them, you haven't solved a problem. You've put it somewhere else, and you've done nothing to address the issue of what brings people to this country. And so, if you think that's the answer, you will discover in due course that all you have done is made the problem worse. So don't misunderstand me. I have every sympathy with those who find this difficult, every sympathy, as I do with those living in poverty. But I don't think we should, we should actively resist the kind of isolationist, short-term, knee-jerk, send them, in this case, send them home.
Let's put a name on it. Is that your message to Mr Farage?
Well, it is. I mean, Mr Farage is saying the things he's saying, but he is not offering any long-term solution to the big issues which are convulsing our world, which lead to this. I see no other way.
The Archbishop of York there, Peter Cardwell, speaking to Sky News. Ernie's been in touch and says, hi Peter, Nigel Farage has more followers than the Archbishop of York. Perhaps he should sit down with Nigel, and Nigel will tell him how to do his job properly, and maybe he'll get some more people coming to his church. Howard says, what big issue, as the Bish said, the big issue is why they come here. That's the big carrot. This is an illegal economic issue. Migrants arrived. Too many migrants arriving, says Howard. Les says, great show, Peter. Les from Plymouth here. I think the Bishop of York should keep his nose out of politics. He is not a politician. Well, the thing is, he is actually a politician because he's a member of the House of Lords. But does he have a right to say this? Well, he does have a right to say this. We all have a right to free speech in this country. But should he say it? Is he right to say it? Let's go to our debate desk. Max Harrison is with us, Kent County Councillor for Sheppey for Reform UK. Max, great to have you on the debate desk as always. And Mike Indian, great to see you too, political commentator. Mike, what do you make of the Bishop?
I mean, he had it struck me before when the caller said twisted woke narrative from the Archbishop. You could only have that line here in the United Kingdom.
Isn't it a twisted woke narrative?
I think it is. I think he's quite rightly talking about the fact that yes, I think there are significant pull factors that bring people to the United Kingdom, but he's also talking about the fact that there are other mechanics that happen beyond our shores to push people here. And it's not just the fact that the UK is drawing these people from all over the world more so than other countries are. There are far more, these migrants going into France, Germany, mainland Europe, and these are people who are paying these small gangs to cross over on the boats. We
know all of that, but what about...
But having a conveyor belt that simply takes them back to Europe and deports them to where, it's just, he's right, it doesn't address the longer term underlying problems, which is pushing people out of the countries that they live in, and often it is...
Why is that our problem?
Because they're ending up on our shores. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's why it becomes our problem.
If we had a genuine deterrent in this country, which Reform UK is arguing is mass deportations, then these people simply won't come here. At the moment, they can come here. If they throw their passport in the water, they come. from day one get accommodation, free food, free healthcare, all these benefits which actually ordinary people are struggling to get. So that is nonsense. And actually, on the point of, the Archbishop of York, I've been deeply concerned, I have many, about the politicisation of the Church of England. Now, where was his comments about Southport? Or his comments about, the rape gangs, or girls who have allegedly been attacked and assaulted by migrant men who simply shouldn't be here? There haven't been any. So this is just political ridiculousness from an individual for whom I'm sure has a right to have his opinions, but actually shouldn't be expressing them in the manner of which he is. Reform UK is on 35% in the polls. The vast majority, over 80% of the British public, believe that deportations is now the answer to solving illegal immigration in this country. So he's out of foot, out of joint, but they wonder why the Church of England is suffering. There's a reason.
Mike Indian, he's right, isn't he?
I don't think he is out of step here. I think, first of all...
I mean, Max Harrison's right.
I think the policy that... Let's talk about the policy. The issue here is not whether Max is right or not. We don't know whether this policy will work in the United Kingdom. If a Reform government gets in...
Well, there isn't an alternative at the moment.
Well, we don't know if it will work or not. We
can't say something won't work if we don't know if it is going to work.
This is why I'm not judging it in hindsight. It may work. It may be... Look, if there was a 90% reduction in... I don't believe the answer is mass deportations. I believe this policy will be it's simply a populist bait to people to try and
mass deportations is a populist bait. Why is it a populist bait? What's wrong with mass deportations? What's wrong with saying there are people in this country illegally, they're coming here because we're a soft touch, let's get rid of them because they shouldn't be here? What's wrong with that?
Well, firstly, we don't know how many people are here illegally as well. Farage has pulled this number out of
Well, we know there's some. So
we know there are some.
Hold on. What do we know about the some that are here illegally and aren't being deported? Should they be deported?
Well, I believe so, yes, but we need to, as I say, the Labour government is starting this by addressing the appeals process, working through. I still think the push factors are bigger than the pull factors there. If we look at the geopolitical turmoil that's in the world, the record high migration figures that we have seen, of which the small boats are a part of that.
Okay, so you admit there's a problem, Mike, and that's fine.
I admit that the migration figures were a record high, Peter, as well, and they were halved by the Sunak government changes to student visas and other legal migration routes.
How do you solve this problem?
I think you need to look. Firstly, it's simplifying the appeals process, which the Labour government is doing. Our asylum system is far too complicated and has far too many delays. We shouldn't be housing migrants in hotels and communities. We need to have proper, humane, clean centres where people can come. They are processed quickly, effectively, and
You're saying people can come. Why can they come, or why should they be able to come?
Because I think it's the mark of a civilised nation that you can offer asylum to those from countries.
Isn't France a civilised nation?
They are. But, at the end of the day, people are choosing to try and come here as well.
This is the key point. Choosing. You're using the word choosing.
Yes.
Why I could choose to go to America and live there? Well, no, I can't, because the immigration rules say that I have to have a reason to be there. I have to have economic forces to back me up. I could choose to go to many other countries. I could choose to go to mainland Europe. I could choose to go to Australia. The fact is they're not going to let me in Australia because there's a points-based system. The fact is that it shouldn't be people's choice. It should be the choice of the country who they take in, shouldn't it?
No, I think it's part of both.
No, it's not their choice. So it's not our choice who we take, Mike. That's what you're saying.
Oh no, it is both of their choices. The person comes here.
How can it be both of our choices? It's a binary argument.
I'm sorry, Peter. You are being obtuse here. When an individual comes to a country, they can apply for asylum. In a civilised world, we should be able to have a system that effectively looks at the application, processes it. Sorry, Max.
Let me just finish. I'll bring you in a second, Max.
So, processes their application smoothly and quickly, and is then able to decide if that person has a genuine reason to stay. It's a two-sided discussion or not. I don't want to have a system where one individual's voice is greater and a system where the country just has a blanket right to deny them.
You don't want to have a system where one individual's voice is bigger than another. So what you're saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mike, and tell me if I'm mischaracterising this, you're saying that an asylum seeker's voice has exactly the same level, that we should listen to it as much as someone who's in this country.
I say that any civilised country puts a weight of due process behind a significant legal right like this, and it should be processed properly, because there will be people who are coming here who have genuine need to escape war, poverty, turmoil in their own country. We want to weed out the people that you're talking about.
If they're coming from France, that doesn't apply.
You don't know. Can you speak for every single asylum seeker in that situation?
I do know, because you're saying they're fleeing war, poverty, famine. They're not fleeing war, poverty, famine if they're coming from France. Factually,
we don't know what they've been through to get to France as well.
Okay, why does that matter?
Well, look, this system
if
at the
France
moment,
is a safe country, why does it matter?
We are viewing one very small part of this process, and this is the issue that, yes, Nigel Farage has talked about sending people back to third countries and reheating Rwanda. I mean, for goodness sake, we're back onto that again. But it doesn't address what the Archbishop is talking about. Is there are significant push factors that are
why are
pushing people out of the
again?
country
I
as
come
well.
back to the question, Mike. Why are the push factors our problem?
Because they're ending up on our shores, Peter. As I said, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I just completely
we can
disagree
address
with
the
your
pull
argument,
factors.
Max.
No, we are forgetting one fundamental thing. They have broken the law because they are entering our country illegally. As such, they have broken the law. That's their first act coming here. It doesn't matter whether they have got proper means or not. The vast majority don't. We know that. They should be deported. They have broken the law. As simple as that. We are spending billions of pounds every single year on housing people in these hotels. Imagine people who are struggling up and down the country, who pay the taxes, abide by law. Imagine if they got free food and free accommodation, free heating, and didn't have to worry about things going on in their street. Most people would quite like that. But we've got these people, men in the main, who are illegally breaking into our country. They have no right of being here, and they should be deported. End of story. Let's then have some offshore processing centres to see whether they have legitimate claims or not. At the moment, the Home Office, I think, Peter, is it 65% they're accepting for asylum claims?
76%, depending on how you look at
it.
So
it's a vast number which are accepting. That margin is just too high. Simple as that. Most of them are not coming from war-torn countries, and the point you made, Peter, is absolutely spot on. If, for example, you're travelling through 5 safe countries, why are you choosing to come over the Channel, which is the most dangerous part of the journey? Because you know on the other side is a haven, golden path.
Well, if you use the word that Mike used, which is chooses, and they are choosing, and we are not choosing. Correct. And that's the problem. Joanna in Salisbury says, good morning, Cardi P. Hi, Joanna. The Archbishop needs to butt out. It's not Nigel Farage's job to sort out why migrants are leaving their countries. It's his job to put the UK first, protect its citizens, and improve our lives. Let the imams sort out the Muslim countries. Mark says, work-shy, emotionally defective young people are the product of lousy parenting, encouraged by lefty, cosseting teachers. I wouldn't even give the topic airtime, says Mark in Norfolk. Well, we are giving the topic airtime. We are talking about it with the debate desk and with you a bit later on. Let me tell you, Bishop, stick to your day job. MPs focus on what the public wants, says Graham in Huddersfield, who calls himself Chirpy. And Lucy says, this raising the voting age is a panic response by Labour. They know they are losing votes and is the last chance saloon. I was a complete plank at 16. I dread to think what 16-year-olds would do with the vote these days. Fab show, says Lucy. Plenty of people are planks at 41. The argument has been made about me. Mary in County Down says Archbishops should express opinions on political and social issues. They have a responsibility to give moral and compassionate leadership. In Northern Ireland, the church leaders played a vital role, often facilitating dialogue that helped the peace process. The same as Archbishop Tutu in South Africa. But in this case, the Archbishop of York isn't offering anything new or useful. He's just hand-wringing and spouting empty rhetoric. Plenty more to discuss, including whether you would fight for your country. Would Mike Indian? Would Max Harrison? We'll find out after the break. Stay with us.
who effectively told us they are scared for their children's safety in the area, and they are worried about what the next steps are and what's going to happen. Obviously, we don't quite know the ramifications of today's hearing yet. We get to see how it progresses and what that appeal might mean for the future. But I mean, the fact the government is allowed to appeal, that could have, if that wasn't the case, then it would effectively tear apart the whole hotel system and leave the whole asylum hotel system in tatters.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mike, I have asked Mike's permission to read out a slightly...
Which I haven't given.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've asked your permission.
And then we went into the show.
I think it's quite funny. It's from someone on Twitter who says, how are we meant to take someone seriously who wears a flat cap indoors?
Oh, come on. Is that the best they've got?
Is it the working class equivalent of Bono sunglasses? I enjoyed that. Another person says, tell Mike Indian to come and live where I am for a week in Dagenham, one tube from Westminster. Then ask him what we should do about immigration. And another person, Barry, says, what planet is Mike Indian on? The Church of England says Nadine has obviously a long way to go yet. It's very sad indeed. The Archbishop of York making political statements will do little to reassure the public that lessons have been learned after Justin Welby's behaviour. Quite a few people getting in touch about votes at 16 as well. I want to ask someone who's a little bit older than that, a 25-year-old, Max Harrison, what he thinks, and also Mike Indian. Starmer's votes for 16-year-olds will give a boost to Corbyn's new party. This is new polling for the Sunday Times. We're going to talk about this properly a little bit later on. We've got someone who's a young person, although Max, you are a young person. I mean, you are factually a young person.
Maybe not young at heart.
You're not a teenager, even though you're perhaps a young fogey.
Speaking to your generation.
I used to be called a young fogey. Now people just call me a fogey. It's deeply offensive. Anyway, on a more serious note, Jeremy Corbyn's new left-wing party could all but eliminate Labour's lead among 16 and 17-year-olds. This is 1 in 5 of that age group would vote for Corbyn and Zara Sultana's movement. They're also far more likely, a third of them, to be on the Palestinian side in the Middle East. Only 9% of them side with Israel. Also, almost a quarter say they're suffered from anxiety, rising to 34% amongst girls. We'll talk about that element in a second. But votes at 16, what do you think?
Well, I've never been in favour of it, but actually, if we're going to bring this thing about, brilliant, because for parties like your party or whatever name is going to be given, Jezbollah, who knows, and to alternative parties like Reform, what a massive boost, because actually, if you look at the last 14 to 15 years, neither the Conservative Party or the Labour have offered anything to young people whatsoever. So no, I do welcome this poll. I mean, if memory serves me right...
Well, Nigel Farage's Reform UK, 23%, with Corbyn on 21%. So actually, many young people just don't like the political system as it is.
No, it hasn't worked for their parents or their grandparents, and now they're looking at the prospects of maybe trying to get a job, maybe try and get a home, all these sort of things about the near coming future, and actually they can't. So of course they're going to look at alternatives in British politics. And although people may say, oh, it's only one poll, whatnot, blah, 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 let's talk about the elections next year. That 24% or 23% for Reform, and let's say if your party does field candidates, we will see huge gains in marginal areas just because of the youth vote. Yes, it doesn't typically go out. We saw that in the EU referendum when only 25% of an age of the young bracket went out and voted. But I think things are different now. I think people are getting engaged in politics. If you take Nigel's, even his TikTok account, he has more followers than all the other MPs put together, and on his Facebook alone, there's 1.6 million for just the Nigel's page. So young people are getting engaged in politics, particularly on the ground. You talk about Reform. We're seeing lots of young people put themselves forward because they see their future is in threat and in danger. So it's good stuff.
Mike, votes at 16 or 17, first of all, are you in favour of it? And hold on. And secondly, if you are or whether you're not, what do you think it would do to our political system?
I don't think it would have a great impact, unfortunately, because, I mean, the last election turnout was 55%. So we're talking basically about enfranchising 2 million more people, which on paper sounds great, but I think the actual number of voters we would get You know, the disaffection with politics is growing throughout all levels of society. 18 to 25-year-olds, 18 to 24-year-olds, roughly 4 out of 10 of them voted the last election, which was below the average turnout. The highest levels of turnout still happen over 65 in that generation, and they're more likely to vote, or were more likely to vote Conservative or for a right-wing party than they were. There may be an alternative there with Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn's vehicle, whatever name it happens to manifest itself as. I personally call them the Fruit and Nut Party at the moment.
Well, that's racist. Zara Sultana says that if you make fun of her surname, it's racist. I mean, that is demonstrable nonsense. But nonetheless, that's what she says.
Well, you know, so I don't think it'll have a massive impact. I think it'll just show that the younger generation don't feel that whatever political vehicle is choosing to put itself forward for Westminster is offering them anything at the moment as well. And I think, you know, if Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana are serious about trying to tap into this vote, and same with the Labour government as well, they don't just need to give young people the vote, they need to be giving them genuine offers and policies for the future. And look, the greatest example of this, the successive governments have chosen to prioritise the triple lock on pensions, the most expensive welfare decisions made in the last 20, 30 years of any government at all, because over 65s vote. It's as simple as that.
But if I might just add, if you take, for example, the Senate elections next year, with the honk system, if you take, for example, the polls at the moment, where Reform are going to probably win 2 out of the 6 in most of the regions.
On the proportional system.
Yeah, on with the honk what they got in Wales. We're talking about that difference between Reform getting either 2 Senate members or 3. In some of those areas, we're talking about a few thousand votes. If young people do get out there and vote, I think it can make a difference.
Well, small numbers of votes will make a huge difference. And what I find quite interesting are the farmers as well, because they're constituencies where they're often Labour MPs with a small majority and more people in the farming community who really, I mean, I'm yet to meet a farmer who says the inheritance tax system is something they favour. So they're actually, when it comes to the next general election, there are loads of different things. Well, look, it's a big issue for farmers, big issue for the country, but there are small numbers of people who can actually make a huge difference.
And look, where these votes are in, you know, Labour has a lot of seats with very shallow majorities, Reform coming in second. If the left-wing vote is split even further, so you've got the Greens, you've now got Lib Dems, and you've got the Left Party, or whatever they're called, that I think would put the kibosh on many Labour MPs being returned. And we're seeing this in how MPs engage with different lobbying organisations. They don't want to be doing anything that isn't going to bolster the local profile. Things like the Senate, though, are great examples of my underlying point about turnout as a health for democracy, though. Even these elections still have turnouts of around 40 to 50%, so it's still half the people not voting. We're not going to see a massive surge in democratic interest without an offering to people of that generation, and it's partly reflected in why teenagers are feeling stressed, they're feeling unhappy, they're worried about the future. And giving them the vote.
They're worried about the present
as
well. I mean, we're looking at about a third of girls saying they have anxiety, nearly 3 in 5 saying they stayed home from school due to anxiety, with 17% admitting they avoided going to school often. What do you make of that, Max?
It's awful and shocking statistics, and I think I'm not at all surprised at all. I mean, I've gone into schools recently, and you see, particularly young girls whom are in a digital age, it's awful for young people. It really is. And actually, if you talk not only about the dangers of social media, which you all know and aware of, but actually genuine life prospects. If you are not an academic individual and your school's telling you to be flung into university, for example, it's not great. We don't have those vocational skills lined up ready for people to have. So, I think it's shocking.
Or even if you are academically inclined and you do your degree, you're still likely to graduate and have a lower salary than you were 20, 15 years ago.
We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. We do have a young person who is going to join us who went through lockdown now, university student. Lots to discuss on all of this. Plenty of people bashing the Bishop as well. We'll talk about that after the break. 0344 499 1000.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, when more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically it's impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, "I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source." Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them. We're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work.
It's crap. It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels, and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, this is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. It's just gone 11 o'clock. Thank you so much for your company. There's loads to talk about this morning. The Archbishop of York says that Nigel Farage's plans on immigration won't work and that we need a more compassionate approach. What do you make of what the Archbishop has said? We're also talking about young people. 16 and 17-year-olds would give a boost to Corbyn's new party, but also Reform UK. We're on the debate desk with Max Harrison and Mike Indian. We're talking about Angela Rayner and her housing arrangements, plenty of questions about that, and indeed too about whether you would fight for King and Country. Big new survey out saying that 2 out of 3 people would not. We'll ask Mike and Max whether they would in just a second. Let me know your thoughts on all these topics. Also Coldplay, big issue, huge concerts at Wembley now moved because of unions. They have got strikes on. There's a serious issue there. Lots of people losing a lot of money. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, less than a minute please, 0344 499 1000. You can use that number to send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring too. Loads to discuss right through to 1 o'clock here on Talk. Stay with us. Thanks to everybody who's been in touch on our search for a young person as well. We've got that young person. They've got out of bed. They're going to speak to us on Zoom in about half an hour's time when we talk about this big story in the Sunday Times. Starmer's votes for 16-year-olds would give a boost to Corbyn's new party. Also, anxiety, the legacy of lockdown. Almost a quarter of 16 and 17-year-olds say they suffer from anxiety. 34% amongst girls. 3 in 5 said they had stayed home from school due to anxiety. Did your son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, niece, nephew, whatever, did they live through lockdown? What are the effects of that? Do you see them glued to their phone as well? 42% spend more than 6 hours a day on their phone. 9% of 16 and 17-year-olds spend more than 10 hours a day on their phone. Really, 10 hours a day. My goodness. Right, we're on the debate desk with Max Harrison and Mike Indian. Thank you both for being with us. Max Harrison is a Kent County Councillor for Sheppey for Reform UK, and Mike Indian is a political commentator here with us. Let's go to the front page of the Daily Express. Where is it? It's in front of me here. The headline is, "More Britons would refuse to fight for a country as conflicts rage across the globe. This is a shock new poll. The paper says 2 in 3 adults would not fight for Britain if we came under attack. This comes after the legendary commentator, in fact, the last commentator who is still alive, who commentated on the 1966 World Cup, England's victorious campaign. This is Barry Davies. He has claimed that Britain should bring back national service. He says he fears for his grandchildren because of the state of the country. Mike, first of all, would you fight for king and country? If you wouldn't, would you encourage others to?
I think the situation has completely changed with the war in Ukraine. The fact is our army is at a record low. There was a plan under Forces 2020 to rely more on reservists. Recruitment retention is hard. Countries like South Korea have long had a policy, successful democracies have a policy of conscription based on their security and history. So I think we need to move with the times and adapt as well. Whether or not this generation, the younger generation coming through, would feel they could do that or not is a different matter. But I think actually in terms of building up our conventional forces and building up the numbers, I would be entirely in favour of that. And if it's going to help make us more secure and reduce the unemployment, it feels like the Westminster sketch here, we can both solve our unemployment problems and address our defence problems as well.
Yeah.
It may be part of the solution.
Okay, briefly, Max?
Yes, I would fight for king and country. I don't think that national conscription is the right direction. It is a shocking poll, but why should we be surprised? I think it's a two-pronged attack, really. Patriotism in this country has been squashed. And, if you look at schools and universities, what they've been saying to young people. So I'm not surprised about that, particularly people's reaction. But also the fact that, people have been putting up the St George flag and the Union Jack, and you've got councils tell them to turn it down. So why should you fight for your country if you can't fly your flag? So I would enlist myself. Not sure with a heart condition I'll be very good or useful, but I think it would be the right thing. But I don't think it's something that people should be forced to do.
We'll come back to the debate desk in a second, but we're going to talk to Alex Burkhardt now, who's the Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Shadow Northern Ireland Minister, Shadow Cabinet Member, of course, for the Conservative Party. Alex, good morning.
Morning, Peter. Thanks for having me on.
Tell me, Alex, this big survey in the Sunday Express, most British people would refuse to fight for their country. Also, Barry Davies, the legendary commentator, he's the last surviving commentator on England's victorious 1966 footballing campaign, saying that we should bring back national service. What's your view on this?
I think it's a very depressing survey, isn't it? The idea that people wouldn't fight for their country. I think your last caller summarised it well, though, where you've got groups of people in the UK who are also almost actively campaigning against the idea of our country, and we've got to turn this around. We've got to create a sense of shared national pride, national endeavour, and patriotism again, which I'm sure we can do. I'm sure can be done in the right hands. And I think I was very struck when her late Majesty the Queen died, at the sense of national pride and national solidarity at that moment, I think showed that it can be done. But right now, I think that's being run down.
There are councils at the moment, Alex, that are trying to eliminate people putting up, not eliminate people, eliminate the practice of putting up England flags. There are people who are painting curbstones, there are people who are painting, someone said that's vandalism in regard to mini roundabouts and things like that. What do you see about that expression of patriotism, especially when there's so many, for example, pro-Palestinian flags, flags up in many, many parts of this country that councils are not taking down?
Yeah, I think it's entirely unacceptable that any council in England should prevent the flying of the George Cross. I think it's entirely unacceptable that any council within the United Kingdom should prevent the flying of the Union Jack. It's not, these things. It's awful that we should even be having to have this discussion. It's quite understandable that where people are told that these flags can't be flown, that they're taking matters into their own hands.
What do you make of what the Archbishop of York has said this morning, not just about patriotism, but about the immigration plans of Nigel Farage? These have been controversial comments by the Archbishop of York, England's most senior bishop at the moment, because there isn't an Archbishop of Canterbury, saying that that Nigel Farage's proposal for mass deportations are isolationist, short-term and knee-jerk. Who's right, the Archbishop or Nigel Farage?
So I'm not sure either of them are right. That the Conservatives are very clear that people who come into this country illegally should not be able to stay here.
You had 14 years to sort it out, though, Alex.
Well, as you remember, Peter, we tried very hard, and by the time we left, after a lot of legal arguments and votes in Parliament, we had an Act of Parliament that would have created a meaningful deterrent and would have sent people who came to the country illegally to Rwanda, and Labour scrapped it when they came in. And now they are reaping the whirlwind of that decision. We have crossings higher than they've ever been before. We have them having to open more and more migrant hotels, having said that they would close them, and the country is very angry and worried about where another 4 years of this will lead. So we left them with a solution. We're the only party that's presented detailed legislation to Parliament since the general election about how this problem can be solved. Some great work done by Chris Philp and Kemi Badenoch. And we're the party that has actually done the detailed work on this.
With that in mind, Alex, what do you make of the judgment in regard to the Bell Hotel? Because there are many people who say that, look, it's on a planning dispute, and others saying actually there's a much more fundamental argument about the fact that Labour is saying they want to close all of those asylum hotels by 2029, but they can't close one of them. And also, do you have any worries about the independence of the judiciary, given that the Court of Appeal judge factually was a member of the Labour Party for 28 years?
So I think, take your points in turn, I think what's very striking, so the Epping is the next door constituency to mine. I'm Brentwood and Ongar in Essex. Very aware of what's gone on there, and I think it's extraordinarily striking that the Home Secretary should have chosen to side with the asylum system over the people of Epping, over the council in Epping, who had expressed their deep concerns about what was going on and asked the Home Secretary to make arrangements. She not only refused to do that, but she sought to fight them in court over it. So I think that that's quite wrong, and I think one of the things that that this government has got to sort out is that the concerns of local people matter. That it's a real thing. It's not something that should be or constantly brushed under the carpet or overridden by other concerns. On your issue about the independence of the judiciary, I don't know enough about this this judge to be able to comment. But to the general point, of course, the judiciary should be completely above criticism. We expect our judges to embody impartiality and fairness. And if
can someone who's been a member of the Labour Party for 28 years embody impartiality?
Well, I think I don't know. The general point is that judges should be able to instill confidence in the public that they are impartial and that they are unbiased. And I think that is something that we're going to have to take a very, very close and serious look at.
Okay. Just before you go, final question. This big story in the Sunday Times about votes for 16 and 17-year-olds. How do you feel about that? And are you worried about the legacy of lockdown, a policy the Conservative government implemented when we know that nearly 3 in 5 16 and 17-year-olds who came through that said they stayed at home from school due to anxiety? Surely lockdown had a role in that.
I think it was a uniquely difficult time where the government and the country was dealing with a virus the like of which they hadn't seen before. And I know that from visiting schools in my constituency that a lot of young people felt the brunt of that. But on the initial point you made, it's very important that anyone listening who has children who go to school or are young people who go to school themselves, that the very best place for you is school, and you shouldn't ever consider school to be optional, and you should also seek to whenever possible overcome your anxiety and get into school. The longer you stay away, the harder it will be to come back. I've seen this up close many times, and it's the longer children are out of school, the worse for them in the long run.
And votes at 16, yes or no?
I've always said that if hundreds of thousands of 16 and 17-year-olds were coming to Westminster campaigning for the vote, you'd have to take that very seriously. But in the whole time I've been an MP, I think I've had 5 emails from 16 and 17-year-olds asking for the vote. And what almost always lies behind campaigns like this are a group of adults who think that they can manipulate the political system by extending the franchise. And I just think that's the wrong way round.
Okay.
So, I am yet to see a massive grassroots movement from young people asking for a vote. I just see adults thinking that they can manipulate things.
Thank you, Alex Burkhardt. He is the Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Shadow of Northern Ireland, Minister, big figure in the Conservative Shadow Cabinet. Now, Max Harrison, you're in a sitting position. You've been in a sedentary position, but your neck muscles got quite a workout during that interview there. I noticed out of the corner of my eye that there was a lot of shaking of your head during that time, and I think your arm as well. You're writing copious notes. I'll come to you in a second, Mike Indian, but Max, I think you might be about to spontaneously combust.
Maybe. I mean, we've just heard for the last couple of minutes why the Conservative Party is dying in this country. Couldn't answer a question, yes or no, can't answer it. Lots of words, no substance. You know, turn around and saying, oh, the Conservatives will deal with illegal immigration. You had 14 years to leave the ECHR. We had over 100,000 men coming to our country under their tenure. They did nothing. And also, I mean, the leader of Kent County Council, Lyndon Kincairn, has written to every single council in Kent asking for their support, saying, look, if you want to take a legal challenge to the Home Office, we will support you. How many Conservatives have come back? One, it was a refusal. Others are not, they're completely and utterly refusing to deal with us whatsoever. They're not a serious party. They won't answer the questions. When it comes to illegal immigration, they know that they're trying to chase reform, but people are just not backing them at all. That's why the BNPG research poll had us on 35%. That's why they're in the teens. They're going to go lower and lower. They're going to get a wipeout in Wales next year, and it's because of people like Alex, I'm afraid, who do not answer questions, don't understand people's real issues, and are totally out of touch with the electorate.
Mike?
I mean, I don't want to be in a position where I'm defending Alex, but I did respect him for actually standing by, you know, he was part of that, you know, that the Conservative Party was in power then, he stood by the lockdown policies. I think we'll be living with the consequences of those, particularly on the youngest generation, for many, many years. But he didn't shy away from that, and on that level, I respected him for not ducking it and saying, well, actually, I thought it was a terrible idea. I do think I would challenge him on saying that school is always the best place for children to be. There is, in many environments, actually, it's not so much the school environment, it's the online environments that young people are in.
The bullying doesn't stop at the end of the day.
I don't think anyone, perhaps except Max, can perhaps understand the generation that's grown up completely immersed in the smartphone world. We're going to talk
to a member of it in just a second, Mike, but certainly your points are valid.
And I would certainly challenge Alex's assumption that you could manipulate 16 and 17-year-olds. You know, if any parent will tell you that trying to get a teenager to do exactly what you want them to do is nigh on impossible.
They won't do their homework, so how are you going to get them to vote for a particular party?
But I think the point about having an offering for that generation, in addition to giving them the vote, my point stands in that.
But I must also ask, say in regards to Alex and his comments, he was saying how wonderful Epping Council were doing. When this stuff was kicking off, it was Conservative councillors in Epping Council who were saying that those doing the protests were misinformed. Yeah, the Conservative Party, it is a broad church with no religion. They're now pretending that they're the darlings of the right. Nobody believes them. They deserve the electoral wipeout.
OK, that is pretty straightforward. Thank you to both of you very, very much. Max Harrison there, Kent County Councillor for Sheppey for Reform UK. Mike Indian, a political commentator with us as well. And I, for one, like the cap, I must say, so keep wearing it. Let us know what you think of what Alex Burkhardt says, of what Mark Francois said, of what the Archbishop has been saying, what Mac's been saying, what Mike's been saying. Whatever your view is, let me know. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll take your calls next.
who effectively told us they are scared for their children's safety in the area, and they are worried about what the next steps are and what's going to happen. Obviously, we don't quite know the ramifications of today's hearing yet. We get to see how it progresses and what that appeal might mean for the future. But I mean, the fact the government is allowed to appeal, that could have, if that wasn't the case, then it would effectively tear apart the whole hotel system and leave the whole asylum hotel system in tatters.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch. We'll take some calls in a second, but let's hear some voice notes first. You can send yours in 0344 499 1000. Christine is number one.
Good morning, Christine from Weymouth. It's all right for the Archbishop, whoever he is. How much land does the church hold in this country? Absolute acres. And have they built any houses for any illegals or for any immigrants? Have they housed any? No, of course they haven't.
Thank you, Christine. Anna?
Good morning, Peter. Anna, sorry, I'll try and be quick. I deal with anxiety in youngsters all the time. It is not due to lockdown, it's due to helicopter parenting. 0 to 4, parents will not let their children be sad, they will not let them cry, they will not let them be anxious, they will not let them work through these things. It's all glove puppets, pom bears and apple juice. You know, they don't let them walk, they carry them in normally when I see them. They're kept in a state of euphoria for 4.5 years. Then when they go to school away from helicopter parent, they have no idea. They have not been allowed to filter and deal with negativity. So they go to school and they are completely ill-equipped. They're kept in pull-ups because parents don't want to tell them off for peeing their pants. Then the teacher has to try to deal with them. Then, of course, they want a quick fix. What they want then is a certificate to say they are either anxious, autistic, or on the spectrum. It's helicopter parenting, Peter. As quick as I can get all that in one sentence. Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much indeed, Anna. Really interesting. Lots in that message. Let's hear from Ted.
Ted from Newport. That's not the Archbishop of York. That's Harry Enfield. Thank you.
I can assure you it is the Archbishop of York, but Ted, thank you. Trevor's been in touch too.
Good morning, Peter. Well, let's hope the Archbishop of York gets exactly what he wants. And I think Nigel Farage, when he becomes Prime Minister, should commandeer all Church of England land. And believe me, there's plenty of it. And put all the illegal migrants in there. There will be a roof over their head and food. And the UK taxpayer, hopefully, will not expect a charge, as the Church of England will do this out of the goodness of their own heart without a fee. Sir Trevor in Harrow.
Trevor, thank you for your thoughts. Should the Church of England put its money where its mouth is if it cares so much about this issue? Joan is in Sunderland. Joan, what do you make of this? You're very welcome to the programme, and thanks for your call on 0344 499 1000. What do you think this morning, Joan?
Well, I've got a frog in my foot. I'm fed up of all these church leaders spouting forth the way they do. I think they should shut up, stop all these opinions, stop all the wokery in the church, and get back to the teachings of Jesus Christ. I am a Christian, and the churches are empty. In fact, cathedrals are being turned into putting greens. Jesus Christ first, everything else second.
The Archbishop may argue, Joan, that this is actually Christian charity, that actually bringing in, you know, bring me your poor, your dispossessed, as Jesus said, that actually what he's saying is actually the Christian message. What would you say to that, Joan?
Well, I told you I'm a Christian myself. And even Jesus said, if you don't work, you don't eat. These people are so airy-minded. I support people all over the world. I've done all kinds for charity. I've supported everything. But I can't agree with them on this. The church is getting wrapped up in other things and it's been emptied. The message is not there. Jesus Christ should be at the centre of things.
Thank you very much for your thoughts, Joan. Appreciate that. Thanks to Brian as well. He's been in touch and says the Archbishop has a very twisted logic. The government's job is to do the best for the citizens of the UK, not to worry about everyone else in the world. Bill Groombridge says, ask Mike Indian whether he would take an illegal immigrant into his home and pay for every need out of his own pocket. There are lots of people who really disagree with the Archbishop of York. Dave in Birmingham says, Peter, can I remind the Archbishop of York, that Jesus wasn't allowed to be housed in a glorious inn. He had to be happy with a stable. So why should illegal immigrants be treated better than one of his bosses? And on votes of 16 and 17, loads of people getting in touch on this. We're going to talk to a 17-year-old in a second. Leon says, morning Peter, if Labour want votes for 16-year-olds, then I'm happy for that debate to take place and go ahead if the public agree, which I think should be through a referendum, and it would have to be only if 16-year-olds were tried in court as adults. They could drive at 16 and also drink alcohol at 16. Then we'll see what the public really think. Karen in Taunton says, is Max your secret son? Max Harrison. He's 25, I'm 41. It's possible, I suppose. He is not my secret son. It's no secret, he is my son. No, he's not my son. This is not a sort of Star Wars style show this morning. Max and I are not related at all. Jackie's been in touch about Bridget Phillipson. This is the Education Secretary out and about this morning. She's been talking about the Bell Hotel. This is what Jackie's view is.
Jackie from Oldham. Bridget Phillipson says about shutting the asylum hotels in 2029. What Labour never do is reveal their reduction strategy and timeline for doing this. Is this not just a case of gaslighting us again?
And on the Archbishop, Kate has been in touch with a voice note as well. You can send them in 0344 499 1000. This is what Kate thinks.
Morning, Peter. Kate from Leeds. The Archbishop of York needs to be saying that to the people in France, doesn't he? Everything what he said, he needs to be saying that to the people in France, the police, the government in France. He's an absolute idiot. Anyway, good show, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. One more voice note from Barry before the break. This is what Barry has to say.
Peter, the problem of child mental difficulties would be solved by bringing back the school board man and insisting that children attend school. It seems to me that once they do that, their mental problems would disappear. And the other thing that's needed in schools is discipline, which is clearly lacking nowadays.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Barry. Well, the story you want to talk about, well, there's loads of stories you want to talk about. One of them, of course, is this votes for 16-year-olds. It would give a boost to both Reform UK and indeed to Jeremy Corbyn. Also, really shocking statistics about more than 4 in 10 young people spending more than 6 hours a day on their phone. 9% spending more than 10 hours. Nearly 3 in 5 said they have stayed home from school due to anxiety. In just a minute, we're going to talk to a 17-year-old, a 20-year-old, a pollster and a behavioural psychologist. We will get to the bottom of this issue, let me tell you, and we'll hear your voice too. You can get your voice on the air, send me a voice note, give me a ring, 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots of people getting in touch about votes at 16. Also, the effect of lockdown on our young people. More than a third say they sympathise more with the Palestinian side than the Gaza war as well. 9% side with Israel. Almost half said they would vote for Remain, 48%. 13% say they would vote Leave. The rest don't know or didn't answer the question. Almost a quarter said they suffered from anxiety, rising to 34% amongst girls. There's loads, big survey in the Sunday Times today. It's on their front page. So we thought we'd go to the source and ask a couple of young people. We've got a 20-year-old, Maisie O'Brien, is with us, who is a student during the pandemic, and Milton Danchuk, who is 17. Milton, I'd want to start with you first. You're 17 years old. Do you want the vote?
No, I don't want the vote, and I don't believe 16 and 17-year-olds should have the vote. It's been 18 for a while. 18 is set at the point of adulthood, and I think it should stay that way.
You have political opinions, though. Wouldn't you want to have them heard at the ballot box, or are you happy just to wait another while?
Well, I'm happy to wait, and there's plenty of ways I can get involved politically without voting. Voting is reserved at 18, it should stay that way, and I'm happy for it to be like that, as someone who does vote. And yeah.
Okay. Do you recognise this picture of anxiety in young people your age, spending up to 10 hours a day on their phone? 9% of 16 and 17-year-olds spending 10 hours a day on their phone. People, you know, you're clearly a very articulate young man, but there are a lot of people who are staring into their phones, communicating that way, but not with each other.
Yeah, so screen time is a massive sort of part of teenagers nowadays since, like I said, lockdown. A lot of people in my class have long screen times, 10 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, and it is certainly on the rise, and it's something that we need to be doing more about. The anxiety side of things, I don't necessarily believe that anxiety has risen. I think maybe laziness has risen, and a lot of people use that as an excuse to, anxiety as an excuse to not do stuff, but certainly screen time is a massive problem, and it is resulting in students being less approach each other and being less sociable.
Sure, less sociable, less communicative. Maisie O'Brien is 20. Maisie, you were a student during the pandemic, of course. You were doing your, we've got Maisie coming in a second. We've managed to lose her line there. But Milton, what was lockdown like for you? You would have been, so hold on, we're going back 5 years. So you were kind of just becoming a teenager during lockdown, missing a lot of school, doing home lessons and stuff. What was that like for you?
It was certainly an interesting time. Obviously having months and months on end off school was, it was tough because no real learning got done, even though school provided, Zoom classes and work at home. It's just remotely was not the same. No work got done. It really impacted everyone's education. Our years in school have had the worst GCSE results, I believe, as a part of it. And so it wasn't positive in that sense, but it was positive in the sense of I was able to maybe do more stuff on my own, being able to spend time with my family. But overall, it weren't that much of an anxiety-inducing situation.
Yeah, Milton, it's just really interesting. I just wonder about the impact on people your age. Of course, you might not know any different because everyone's been through it together, but when you look at people maybe a little bit older, do you see kind of differences? Do you see different ways that you kind of look at the world? Of friends here maybe, at university now, or maybe even beyond that, who didn't go through, they went through lockdown as we all did, of course, but just had experienced it at a different stage. Do you see differences, Milton, maybe?
Yes and no, to an extent. I feel like the lockdown and young people sort of had the same result on everyone young. It was sort of quite quite lazy. It's not really made a difference age-wise. It's certainly people I see nowadays, when I was maybe that age before lockdown, seeing people in university, they had jobs, they seemed to be working hard. Nowadays, it seems there's been a shift, and people aren't generally as involved and working.
Yeah. Very interesting. Milton, would you do me a favour and just sit tight for about 10 minutes or so, because I want to go to Maisie O'Brien in a second. I also want to speak to a pollster and a behavioural psychologist. I'd love your view on all of that. But Maisie, let me ask you, you're a student now, you're 20 years old, and you're obviously learning during the pandemic. When you hear these bits of information, more than a third of students, almost a quarter, sorry, let me get this right. A third of girls say they suffer from anxiety. It's about a quarter of 16 and 17-year-olds more broadly. Nearly 3 in 5 people staying home from school because of anxiety. 17% saying they avoid going to school often. I mean, you went through the pandemic. Is that something that you experienced, or you've encountered yourself, Maisie?
Yeah, I mean, I have a twin sister as well, and we both kind of went through similar things with that. I mean, there's a lot of pressure, and it's quite different to be at home and like manage yourself, because I guess you spend a lot of time in school like being managed, so you never really learn proper independence. And then when everything's on our own time, like I feel the lack of routine affects a lot.
We just have a problem with Maisie's line. We'll hopefully go back to her in a minute or two, but I think her point was a good one there in terms of people coming through this. I'm interested to hear Maisie's view when we get her back as well on votes at 16 and 17. That's certainly something that Joe Twyman's going to have a thought on. He is the co-founder of Delta Poll. Joe, thank you for joining me this morning. Really interesting, some of this polling saying that if votes were given to 16 and 17-year-olds, that actually Jeremy Corbyn could get quite a lot of that vote share. Starmer's Labour would be on 24%, Farage on 23%, and Corbyn's new party, which doesn't even have a name yet, would be on 21%. Are you surprised in any way by that, Joe? When the rejection, it would appear, by 44%, if you add Reform and Corbyn's party, if you add that together, 44% of young people rejecting what I think we can safely say are mainstream parties.
Well, what I would say, first of all, is that there's a lot of heavy lifting going on in the term could when it comes to could vote for these things. As you say, Jeremy Corbyn's party doesn't even have a name yet. But what I think this poll is reflecting is actually the kind of patterns that we're seeing really across established democracies, particularly in Europe, among young people. And the poll more widely talks about the kind of difficulties that people of different teenage years have faced since COVID. 16, 17-year-olds, for instance, will have been starting senior school, such an important moment in their lives as the COVID pandemic took hold, and the impact that that has and continues to have on both young people and the rest of the population, I think, shouldn't be underestimated. But when it comes to voting, what we've seen is, as I say, across established democracies, among young people, a rejection of established parties in favour of different political movements in different ways. During the German federal election, a lot of attention was paid to the fact that young men were voting in large numbers for AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, the right-wing party in Germany, but far less attention was paid to the fact that even larger numbers of young women were voting for Die Linke, the left-wing party in Germany, again demonstrating that the established centre ground, for want of a better expression, of politics there was rejected. And I think we're seeing a similar thing now. But this is asking about how people would vote if they could vote at an election at some point in the future. And so, yes, we can talk about the general trends, but talking about particular percentages and whether one party is up or down is perhaps not such a good idea.
Just briefly before you go, Joe, more than a third, 36% say they sympathise more with the Palestinian side in the Gaza war. Just 9% say they sympathise with Israel. Is that broadly amongst the trends in adults, or is it different in regard to young people?
Well, this is something that has changed significantly since the actions in Gaza began. Certainly in the aftermath of October 7th, sympathy was very much with Israelis, but as time has gone on, that has fallen away and moved towards Palestinians. And I think the Israelis will not be so concerned about what world public opinion is happening towards them, but there's definitely a move towards Palestinians among many age groups, not just young people, but it's particularly true among younger people.
Joe, thank you. That's Joe Twyman there, the co-founder of Delta Poll. Let's go back to Maisie, our 20-year-old. Maisie was a student during lockdown. We've got your line back up there, Maisie. What do you think about votes at 16 and 17, Maisie? Do you think that's something that should happen now? Of course, you have the vote because you're over 18.
Yeah. I'm kind of unsure because not a lot of 16, 17-year-olds, we don't really get taught a lot about real-world politics in school. I feel like there's not a lot in school that actually relates to like real-life living, and when you're in the middle of that, you don't really have a lot of. I mean, it's kind of hard to.
That's a really good question, actually, Maisie. You know, should people be taught more about not the minutiae of politics, not necessarily saying. I mean, I love politics. I did politics A level. I'm not saying everybody should do that, but just the really basic stuff. You're a citizen. You have a vote. You know, at 18 you get a vote. Should you get it when you're younger? This is what you can do. This is how you register. This is how you go to the polling booth. All that kind of stuff. Do you think that should be taught in schools?
I think so. Yeah. Because especially like I did a lot of science A levels, so you kind of don't have a lot of time and you don't really get to hear a lot about the politics from school, like from neutral, informed people. So it kind of makes it hard to, I don't know, be fully up to date and aware of things that are going on.
How much time a day do you think you spend on your phone, Maisie?
I don't, especially when I'm at uni, I don't spend a lot of time on my phone. I don't have a lot of time to be on my phone. And if I am using technology, it's mostly just for uni work or for like contacting friends to meet up or like lecturers to discuss things. I don't know.
That's good. I mean, that's not an answer I was expecting, to be honest. I mean, do you think you've got a good balance yourself between you know, using the phone, not using the phone, meeting up with people and talking to real human beings?
I think so, yeah. I much prefer that.
Yeah.
I find social media quite tiring and overwhelming.
What are you studying?
I'm doing biomedical science.
Cool, excellent. Well, listen, I wish you very, very well with that, with your course, and thanks for speaking to us today. A very articulate young woman. That's Maisie O'Brien there, who's 20, who was a student during the pandemic. Thank you to her. Milton Danchuk is, of course, still listening, and we'll continue the conversation. We heard from Joe Twyman, the co-founder of Delta Poll. You've been in touch as well. Many, many people thinking about this issue, thinking about votes at 16 as well, and just about young people. This person says, "Good morning, Peter. Fantastic show as always. I'm a clinician in a GP practice. These children have PIP, and I'm completing PIP forms from the DWP as they need a claim against these things as an adult. It's a disgrace how they come in with lips enhanced, eyebrows, best clothes, but state due anxiety and can't work. These payments to the parents before the age of 18 must be given the family a high income. Many parents do not work. Please don't name me. Well, you haven't given me your name, so I'm not going to name you, so don't worry. A lot of unforeseen consequences followed lowering the voting age from 21 to 18, says Nicholas. In Essex, 5-year trade apprenticeships, for instance, which has completely screwed up the building industry. Colin says if you can vote, you can go to war as well, which is another thing we're talking about this morning, conscription. All the pressures in young people are clearly there. We've heard really articulately, we had a voice note earlier on as well, talking about working with very young children, really interesting there as well. Joe Hemmings is a behavioural psychologist. Joe, I'm not going to ask you whether you believe votes should come at 16 or 17, but I am interested definitely in the effects of lockdown, and these statistics today talking about 34% of girls saying they suffer from anxiety, 16 and 17-year-old girls, and nearly 3 in 5 saying they had skipped school because of anxiety, 17% saying they would avoid going to school often. With girls, 69% saying they had sometimes or often stayed at home from school due to anxiety. What do you make of these findings, Joe?
Well, I think they're pretty shocking and very disappointing. And I know you've talked a lot about the actual stats and what's going on and possibilities from that cohort being from lockdown. I think one of the things that doesn't get addressed is how we deal with this, that actually I think there should be proper resilience teaching in schools so that you understand what anxiety and stress is. We have to have some amount of anxiety in our lives. It keeps us focused, it concentrates our mind, it shows what's important, it teaches us to be vigilant. I mean, there are so many reasons why anxiety is an important factor in our lives. So I'd like, children to know that, the normal range of anxiety. I think coping mechanisms for it, such as, I don't know, simple breathing techniques or, mindfulness to lower that level of anxiety. What is it? What are the hormones that cause it? How can we regulate them a bit better? All these things to put them in context so people don't feel that anxiety is abnormal.
Do you think it's getting worse because of phones, because of lockdown? Do we put too much pressure on our young people?
Look, I think we do. There's been a study that says over 50% of people with, or young people with ADHD have either self-diagnosed that or have gone via TikTok to some online questionnaire and decided they have ADHD. This is all very worrying. We're taking relatively normal teenage behavior and creating and over-diagnosing it, either because they're doing it themselves or because it's kind of become a bit fashionable to have it. All this needs to be addressed because it's sort of self-replicating. It just will keep making this more pronounced and more difficult as time goes on, unless we address it at the grassroots level, which is explain what it is and explain what anxiety and stress are and how a certain level of them are absolutely essential. You cannot take an exam and expect to succeed if you don't have a bit of anxiety beforehand, because you will not be focused, you will not be concentrating, you will not be motivated. There's lots of things that I think young people don't understand, and parents don't understand about normal levels of anxiety.
Okay, Joe, thank you. Joe Hemmings is a behavioural psychologist. Listening to all of that, having stayed on the line for the last 10 or 15 minutes or so, is Milton Danchuk, our 17-year-old student. Let's go right back to him. Milton, what are your impressions of what you've heard in the last little while, of what the different speakers have said? What's sort of struck a chord with you as a 17-year-old?
Well, yeah, the behavioural psychologist is completely correct. Obviously, there's been a massive spike in reported cases of anxiety and ADHD. And in 2016 and 2017, there was only 3,000 reported cases, referrals to the NHS on anxiety. In 2024, that shot up to like 100,000. And I completely agree with what she's saying in that it is TikTok therapists, it's high schools trying to push them into self-diagnosis. And like I said, a lot of the time, most of them don't even have anxiety or ADHD.
Well, it's really interesting you mentioned that, actually. Linda has been in touch on text and says, anxiety and mild depression was called being fed up in my day. Martin says, I think most childhood anxiety is called by smartphones and social media. They're a drug and the nation is addicted. What do you make of what Martin says, Milton?
Yeah, look, cell phones are clearly a massive problem amongst young people. Screen time is very high for a lot of teenagers. And yeah, I don't doubt it causes anxiety. Obviously, if you go on your phone and you've got access to all these websites or your apps, teenagers have been exposed to a lot of things that past generations just wouldn't have been exposed to because they didn't have access to the internet. They've not seen, so if you get teenagers, some weird teenagers who are looking at sort of photos of dead bodies or whatever because they find that interesting.
Yeah, I remember one of the most disturbing conversations I ever had in my life was about was with a 13-year-old. It was about 8 years ago, and he said that what people did literally in the schoolyard was watch videos of people taking their own life on YouTube, and that just scared the pants off me, to be brutally honest. Milton, I just have one more thing I want to ask you about. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but Amanda we're talking this morning about a big survey. I sense you can deal with these things because you're clearly a smart and articulate young man. There's a story saying most Britons would refuse to fight for their country, and I mean 17 is absolutely the age where army recruiters are going to say, right, join the army, you're kind of young, fit and healthy people. Amanda's been in touch and said it's no wonder our young people don't have the patriotism to fight for our country when schools deliberately encourage them to despise the values most hold dear and only teach the negative of our past. I just wonder how you feel and how maybe your friends feel towards military service. Is that something you've ever considered, crossed your mind, or is it something you just absolutely wouldn't do?
It's not something I certainly would never do. Military service is extremely important. It's extremely, obviously, key to the country. There has been, and I've seen multiple polls by Joe UK, sort of, where they go around. And a lot of people said, no, I don't want to, I'd never fight for this country. A lot of people were against the national service that Rishi Sunak tried to impose.
Yeah.
You know, certainly the people I know, they wouldn't want to fight in the army.
Okay.
And that certainly needs to change. She's completely right. We only ever taught the bad parts of our history and not the amazing parts. The fact is, it's not impossible to young people just aren't interested in fighting for the country. If we look at other countries like South Korea and Rwanda, they've got large armies. Young people want to get involved with the armies. It's completely possible. It's just dependent on how we go about doing it.
Milton, you're 17 years old. You're far more articulate than many of the guests and many of the MPs I talk to. You've dealt with a very wide range of topics as well, and I put you on the spot on a couple of occasions. Thank you very much for your time this morning, and thanks for hanging on as well as Milton Danchuk, who's 17 years old. He's a student, and I've learned a lot from what he has said, from what Maisie O'Brien, our 20-year-old student biomedical scientist, clearly a very intelligent young woman as well, and Joe Twyman and Joe Hemmings have told us this morning. What do you think of it all? 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
This is a fairly straightforward case, and every thinking lawyer I know expected this outcome. There's a couple of factors that you have to take into account. This was a planning law case. It wasn't a human rights case. It touches on human rights, but it was actually a planning law case. And Epping Council have, for the past 3 years, allowed this hotel, with planning permission, to house asylum seekers in the hotel. They haven't taken any enforcement action.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's been in touch, including Charles in Worcestershire, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Charles, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
I just wanted to talk about anxiety. I suffered with anxiety from the age of 4. At the age of 26, I recovered, and since then, I'm 57 now, and since then I've been helping people to understand the physiology and psychology and psychophysiology of anxiety. And your behavioural psychologist that was commenting before about anxiety being normal and acceptable, and that we need to teach children that having anxiety is completely natural, is actually factually incorrect and physiologically incorrect, because anxiety is the disorder of fear.
fear is a natural, normal response to threat. It isn't even an emotion, strictly speaking, because it isn't created in the same way as emotions are created in the brain. And suffering from anxiety means you have a predisposition. Now, during lockdown, there were those children that don't have the predisposition to developing anxiety conditions, and that covers things like panic attacks, agoraphobia, OCD, health anxiety, eating disorders, self-harming, and all those other related conditions. And if you don't have the predisposition to developing those conditions, you just won't. So during lockdown, what happened was that their normal, let's call it, was deactivated.
Yeah.
And suddenly their predisposition to suffering from anxiety was activated. And once activated, it's very difficult to switch off unless you understand the physiology.
Well, it's really interesting you mention that. It's really interesting you mentioned that, Charles, because I've been treated for anxiety for about 12 or 13 years. I take pills every day for it, and depression as well. And the way I explain it to people, not as expertly as you can, but the way I explain it to people is, if everything in your life is fine, I get up this morning, I've got a job, I've got a nice place to live, I've got colleagues I like, mostly, and you're in a situation where you come to work and everything's okay, but you still feel rubbish, well, you've no reason, there's no circumstance that makes you feel rubbish. That, to me, is depression. That's how I explain it. Anxiety is similar. I mean, there were times where I, wouldn't want to go to the shop, wouldn't want to talk to people, wouldn't feel I could be part of a conversation. And, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm someone who's generally quite good at communicating, certainly talking, maybe not listening. But Charles, that's kind of, in my layman's terms, how I explain it. And I remember speaking to a GP at one stage who said that every kind of April, May, she got loads of people in a university town saying, give me pills because I'm worried about my exams. And she said, well, they're exams, most people are worried about them. So she wouldn't give the pills out. I just wonder what your impressions are of that.
Well, I mean, of course, there are natural and normal levels of stress and fear throughout life, but they are very different to disorder. Disorder, for example, putting it into simple terms, disorder is unfitness. Fitness is order. Your body and mind are working effectively and efficiently as they should because of their biology, then you're in order. As soon as that order is affected by something, whether it's laziness or eating too much, you become disordered. And it's the same with many, many examples in life where life circumstances, environments can cause disorder to happen in any human body. But the problem is we have to, and also, I mean, you said something very interesting there about anxiety and depression. If you spoke to a psychophysiologist or a neurologist, they would tell you that those two conditions can't coexist in comorbidity. But we're convinced by psychology and psychiatry that they can. And the reason for that is because it's then very simple to prescribe antidepressants to treat a non-depressing condition like anxiety. Anxiety is created from the disorder of fear, and fear and happiness don't have a relationship. So making you more happy by boosting serotonin levels isn't going to work. What is going to work is the actual science of the condition. So people with anxiety very often have depressed thoughts because they have been suppressed and overwhelmed by their anxiety.
Charles, we're just going to leave it there because we've got to go to the news. But listen, thank you for your expertise on that, and thank you again to the consultant psychiatrist, Stephen, who's been treating me for the last 12 years. He's a fantastic man. More to come in just a minute here on Talk.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs. People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... Those... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was a was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work. You just can't say it.
It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good afternoon. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. It's great to have your company right through to 1 o'clock today. And I'm doing Drive all week between 4 and 7. So I hope you can join me for that tomorrow morning from 4. Plenty to discuss today, including whether you would fight for King and Country. 2/3 of people say they wouldn't. Young people, 16 and 17-year-olds, some of them say they want the vote that would benefit Jeremy Corbyn and Nigel Farage, the mainstream parties being squeezed out. But the big topic you want to talk about today, and I want to talk about it too, is the Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell. He says Nigel Farage's immigration plan is rubbish and disingenuous. We'll hear what he has to say in just a second, and we'll get your reaction. Plenty to talk about. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send in your voice notes, less than a minute please. You can send me on the main number, which I'll give you in a second. You can also send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Loads to talk about between now and 1 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk. Herbie's in Harrow. 0344 499 1000 is the number he's called about the Archbishop. Herbie, just before I come to you, I just want to remind people what the Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, has been saying. He's been talking to Trevor Phillips on Sky News this morning.
Your response to those people who are saying policy should be you land here unlawfully, you get locked up and you get deported straight away, no ifs, no buts?
Well, I'd say to them, you haven't solved a problem, you've put it somewhere else and you've done nothing to address the issue of what brings people to this country. And so if you think that's the answer, you will discover in due course that all you have done is made the problem worse. So don't misunderstand me. I have every sympathy with those who find this difficult, every sympathy, as I do with those living in poverty. But I don't think we should, we should actively resist the kind of isolationist, short-term, knee-jerk, send them, in this case, send them home.
Let's put a name on it. Is that your message to Mr Farage?
Well, it is. I mean, Mr Farage is saying the things he's saying, but he is not offering any long-term solution to the big issues which are convulsing our world, which lead to this. I see no other way.
The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, has also been speaking to Sky News. We did ask her on the programme this morning. She said she didn't have time to do the interview, or her people did anyway, but she has been reacting to what the Archbishop of York has been saying. This is what the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, said.
Last year, for the election, you promised that you'd set out and deliver a strategy to end child poverty by spring. Well, that's been delayed. The Archbishop of York describes that delay, called a failure, as, I'm quoting him here, as hugely frustrating and deeply shaming. He's frustrated. Are you ashamed?
I'm ashamed of the very high numbers of children growing up in poverty that we see in our country, so I understand the Archbishop's challenge around bringing those numbers down. It's what I came into politics to do. It's what I believe very strongly, that the family that you're born into, family circumstance, shouldn't determine everything you go on to achieve. It's why we've already taken action as a government. New free breakfast clubs, the childcare expansion that rolls out from tomorrow, 30 hours of government-funded childcare for working parents. And alongside that, just recently we announced the single biggest expansion of free school meals to all families in receipt of universal credit. That will lift 100,000 children out of poverty. But do I accept the challenge that there is more to do on bringing those numbers down further? Yes, I do, and I agree, and this government will deliver that.
Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary. Well, Herbie in Harrow, who's waiting very patiently, wants to talk about the Archbishop and what he has said in regard to Nigel Farage. Herbie, what do you make of this?
Good afternoon, Peter. Well, I think it's shameful. The man needs to know that Nigel's reform or challenge needs to be given a chance. Everything else is foul. And it's all very well for him to say that, we need to look after these people. The Church of England, one of the richest landowners and property owners in the country, let them put them up then. If he believes in that, when you believe how many mosques are being built now compared to churches, he should be ashamed of himself. That's what he needs to concentrate on, is why he's not having people visiting churches.
I think that's a very fair point, and a lot of people will agree with that. I mean, we're in a situation where churches, many of them, many Anglican churches and other denominations as well, are empty. Clearly their message isn't getting across. He's not getting the message across in his churches. He's gone to the media to talk about political issues. I mean, he's a member of the House of Lords, as many senior bishops and archbishops are. Should he stick to religion rather than politics, do you think, Herbie?
Oh, I think so, totally. I mean, you say the congregations are disappearing rather rapidly, whereas the Muslim religion is expanding quite fiercely, and he needs to look at that as to the reason why. Because he's not talking about the issues of the day-to-day. He's talking about, as you say, these political issues which got nothing to do with him technically, but he needs to put his own house in order first. Thank
you for your thoughts, Herbie. Really appreciate them. That's Herbie in Harrow there. Anne's given me a ring too. Anne's in Sussex. What would you like to say, Anne?
Oh, well, I'm not surprised the Archbishop of York has come out with this. Sadly, in many of the leadership of many of the churches now, I don't know that they're even Christians. They're more about money, and it's about complying. I'm sorry, Peter, I have to say this, with the 45 rules of communism, which is to get the church to convert and support all their changes. And the churches have become social centres to separate children from parents. You know, early years, all of us in school, breakfast clubs, poverty. And when they're going on about the children, the white middle-class children, actually it's an indication of how we failed the white middle-class parents. Because they're teaching, they're raising the children, and we haven't done a good job over the past 100 years for some families. And what we have also done under both governments, we've taken away the support that there was for early years, the health visitors, the real... Yeah. All of that has gone by the board.
Well, so much of that infrastructure, Anne. I think you make a really, really good set of points there. Thank you for them. Appreciate that. There are many people who want to get in on this, and on the 16-year-olds' votes as well, and the fact that there's a big poll in the Sunday Express. Most Britons would refuse to fight for their country. 2 in 3 adults would not fight for Britain. There's also a very interesting comments from Barry Davies. Remember him, the commentating legend. He, of course, commentated on various iconic sporting moments, including Maradona's infamous hand of God goal against England in the 1986 World Cup, and he worked on Match of the Day between 1969 and 2004. He says that Britain should bring back national service, but should we bring back national service to a nation where 2 in 3 people would refuse to fight for the country. Well, the former Defence Minister and military veteran himself, Tobias Ellwood, is with us now. Tobias, what do you make of all of this?
Yes, it's a fascinating debate, and it's an important one that we discuss. I'm reminded of that 1932 Oxford Union debate, and the motion was, this House will not fight for king and country. And the motion was put, and ultimately it won. The feeling then, and it reflected society, is that after the First World War, this generation that was growing up had had enough of war, really did not want to then step up and take up arms again, regardless of what was going on overseas. That was 1932. And Churchill made the comment that he believed Hitler saw the result and thought Britain would be weak, and therefore decided that that was the opportunity to step up. I understand the mood at the moment. The world is getting very dangerous, very uncertain indeed. And a lot of it is happening somewhere else, overseas, abroad, far off places. What on earth has it got to do with us? But that's exactly what happened in the 1930s, is that war ended up on our shores. And what I would argue is that it's already there. Battles, warfare itself has moved away from just being in areas of conflict. It's all around us. The grey zone warfare is here. Not a day goes by when Russia isn't trying to thwart us in some way, snipping undersea cables, impacting on our economies, sowing disinformation, even occasionally carrying assassinations out on our own turf. This is where war is going. And from a society perspective, we are very, very vulnerable indeed. And that's why I believe that there is a debate to be had about how we can better improve our total defense, of our complete capability of every one of us knowing what we would do in some form of emergency, to have a role to play.
Is national
not
service?
Not necessarily Army, Air Force or Navy, but other forms, other support mechanisms to do with AI, to do with Coast Guard, to do with having some contribution to make sure that we can stand up and offer some sort of deterrence. This is exactly what Scandinavia is doing, and I think we should follow suit.
What about national service? Because basically everybody I speak to in the military says that they believe that, you know, people should want to be there. It should be something that is that what they feel is either a duty or a desire. The problem is, if you say to anybody of any age, but particularly 17, 18, 19-year-olds, you've got to do this. And by the way, you know, you're going to be out on a cold Saturday morning doing press-ups or running around with guns or whatever. They actually perhaps don't want to do it. Aside from all of the thoughts of military action, going to war, the fact that many young people are anti-war, not all of them of course, but some of them will be anti-war, have views that are perhaps not as patriotic as we would like. I'm not stereotyping young people, I'm just saying that some of them will have those opinions. I just wonder whether you think national service is something that should be brought back in some way, as Barry Davies has suggested.
Well, I actually suggested it during the general election. I have said that we are where the world is going, where I see it as threats building up, the storm clouds are gathering again. We are woefully unprepared. But the points that you make are very, very valid indeed. You can't defend a nation if the nation themselves, if the individuals are not enthused to do so. And often it will take a single event, a seismic moment to recognize that absolutely, much as we don't want war, much as we don't want to go to war, war is coming to us, and we need to prepare for it or get ready to defend ourselves. And what you say about a younger generation believing that that's what involves in national service, running around with guns, that's what we need to park, because as I touched on earlier, yes, the Army, Air Force or Navy are already overstretched. We need to bolster those capabilities. But actually, modern warfare is in a very different paradigm. And we require skill sets which are actually embedded across society already in, you know, drone manufacture, operating drones, and the whole AI skills, disinformation. There's an entire labyrinth of spectrum of warfare that we are not very good at, but our enemies are indeed. Cybersecurity skills and so forth, unmanned operations, air traffic controls. These are all things from a total society perspective that we need to get better at. We cannot lean on our Army, Air Force or Navy to protect us. They, firstly, don't have the skill sets, and second, we don't have the money to make sure that they're of the size to be able to do that.
Tobias, I just wonder what you think about a point that has been made on the front page of the Sunday Times today in regard to 16 and 17-year-olds having the vote. We've been talking about what they're doing. You're obviously former Defence Minister, former MP. In regard to 16, 17-year-olds having the vote, would that perhaps make them more invested in their nation, more likely to feel pride in their nation? What do you think?
I think that last question is absolutely fundamental. I'm afraid over generations, perhaps because of our history, the empire and so forth, we've never done a lot to encourage ourselves to debate and confirm what being British is. And now that it's come up for question and so forth, we are perhaps looking for confirmation as to what it means to be British. And that is something that I think we need to discuss and rally around, because that's what needs to link all political parties. If we don't have guide rails, confirmation as to what our nation stands for, believes in, where it wants to go, then we are a bit lost as to who should lead us to wherever it is that we might be drifting towards. So this idea of voting for, or 16-year-olds being able to vote, it's happening across the world in other parts of Europe already. Younger generations are taking a greater interest. When we discussed this during the general election, whether the 16-year-olds themselves wanted to vote, they put their hands up to say, actually, we don't know enough about it yet.
Yeah.
We really need to learn more. And there needs to be that dimension of making sure they have, particularly in this world of so much disinformation and social media, how do you know what you're being told is the truth, particularly when you're, quite, more susceptible at the age of 16. That is the big question, the big challenge that we face.
Tobias, thank you. That's Tobias Ellwood there, former Defence Minister. Appreciate you joining us on Talk this afternoon. Bernie says if the Conservatives had reforms ideas, they would still be in Parliament. Reform needs to watch they don't alienate their followers. Steve says, I think the way things are going in this anti-British lying Labour government, many people would fight for the country against Starmer, says Steve. Well, let's hope there isn't a civil war. Michelle says she's from Rutland and my friend's daughter's school had a mock election last year. 95% of the students voted for reform. Stephen Portishead says, I've just turned 60. Well, very happy birthday to you, Steve. He says, I worked all my life since leaving school at 16. I've never taken a penny from the state ever. I took early retirement at 58 as life is too short. I do not recognise my country anymore. If you import the third world, you become the third world. Sadly, I spent most of last night Googling on the requirements to move and retire to Portugal. Sad times, says Steve. David Dorset. National Service. I joined the Royal Navy at 15 and in 1971, I'd been serving a year by 16, not allowed to vote then as underage. Why is it taking so long for some idiot to think that now giving a 16-year-old a vote in this day and age is suitable, says David Dorset. Barry says, morning Peter, the subject of national service comes around. I'm a veteran. I wouldn't want people in the service who don't want to be there voluntarily. Just the point I was making there a little bit earlier on. In the case of compulsory call ups in a national emergency, the clue is in the word compulsory. It's military service or prison. David says, as for Bridget Phillipson, God help us. Mark in Norfolk says, work-shy, emotionally defective young people are the product of lousy parenting encouraged by lefty cosseting teachers. Another person says, Angela Rayner has been on benefits all her life from birth until now. Her mother was on benefits as a 16-year-old single mother. Angela got a council house with the rent paid by housing benefit, council tax, maternity, child benefit, income support, disability benefits for her son. Then she qualified for right to buy, her council tax for 30% of the market value, and gets her mortgage payments paid for by her housing benefit. Obviously, Angela Rayner's 3 homes are things where there have been, we haven't really talked about this morning actually, but front page of the Mail on Sunday here, Rayner used top wealth protection firm in deal over house. The controversy over her tangled financial affairs deepening. As it emerged, she employed the services of a company which specialises in wealth protection. The Sun on Sunday, as well as Labour lobby row. The Deputy Prime Minister's boyfriend, Sam Tarry, has been working for a political lobbying group whose client got a £280,000 cash boost from the government. No suggestion, obviously, that Sam Tarry has done anything wrong. And Penny says, hi Peter the Great, that's what Penny calls me, because you are. Please can the God botherers keep out of it? They have no idea about the real world, no time for them whatsoever, says Penny. Penny, thanks for the compliment and good point there. Wendy says, these countries wanted independence from the UK Empire. They got at least 50 years ago. Now the Archbishop wants us to fix the bigger problem of immigration. Does he mean reform the British Empire and take control of these countries again? I don't think he does. Let's talk more to you. We'll take your calls, your voice notes. They're coming in 0344 499 1000. Plenty of time to get on the air between now and 1 o'clock, because there's loads to talk about here on Talk.
This is a fairly straightforward case, and every thinking lawyer I know expected this outcome. There's a couple of factors that you have to take into account. This was a planning law case. It wasn't a human rights case. It touches on human rights, but it was actually a planning law case. And Epping Council have, for the past 3 years, allowed this hotel, with planning permission, to house asylum seekers in the hotel. They haven't taken any enforcement action.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to Elisa in Chelmsford, who says, listening to the two teenagers you interviewed, Peter, it gives me hope for the future. They are a credit to their peers. I should say one of them is 20 years old, but I absolutely take the sentiment, Elisa, and I think they're both brilliant. As for the teenagers choosing to side against Israel, says Elisa, I would like to see how many of them would have continued to do so if they learnt the true history of the region and viewed the horrific footage from the 7th of October massacre. Of course, there are many teenagers who were killed there, many young people who were at the Nova Music Festival. Praying every day, Elisa says, for the rescue of the remaining 48 hostages. Thank you to Tad Davison as well, who says, I sincerely wish I knew what has gone wrong with our institutions, the Anglican Church being the latest. Immigration at the present rate threatens to kill the golden goose because we cannot sustain the numbers. Effectively, the Archbishop has lost sight of reality. Contrastingly, Farage offers a solution to the problem. Little wonder the church is in such a dire predicament when its message is basically Marxist, says Tad. Well, Paul in Bolton has some thoughts on what the Archbishop of York has been saying. He's been rubbishing Nigel Farage's plans on migration. Paul, you're very welcome to the programme. Thanks for giving us a call. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. Just before I go on to that, I was going to say, with regards to the National Service, where do the LGBT community stand with this? Because one minute they're not wanting us in the army and what have you, and then will they want us in the army when it comes to National Service and calling us up for wars?
Well, we'll see what happens. Certainly there have been leaps and bounds. It used to be illegal to be in the military and to be anything but straight. Now that's all fine, and as it should be. Paul, what do you make of the Archbishop?
Hopefully trans people will get out of it easier than others. But anyway, I was going to say, with regards to the Archbishop, he's right, I think, and this is what Christianity should be about. It should be about caring for others, regardless of what country they're from or what their skin colour is. And if Richard Tice is so up on religion, why doesn't he become a vicar or a priest or whatever?
Why Richard Tice?
Well, he's been talking about it. Farage as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Richard Tice. I've heard Richard Tice on something else this morning, and basically they're coming across as very unchristian. I don't know what if Nigel Farage says he's a Christian, but Richard Tice does, and I think they should give up politics and go and move to the church. If they want the church how they want it, they should become vicars and priests. Because
you think Reform UK should go into the church if they want to reform the church? I mean,
yeah, they should give up politics, but they won't do because obviously they like the nice wages, don't they? And it's probably not going to be as good a wage in the church for them and as good a profile.
Okay, Paul, why do you disagree with Reform's policy? What's wrong with it, do you think, on migration?
Well, why would anyone not disagree with it with a bit of a heart? It's just wrong, in my opinion. I mean, I disagree with Reform on a hell of a lot of things, but like I said, the whole point of Christianity, and Jesus was supposed to be a bit of a socialist. A lot of them say, don't they? But
I think Jesus was a socialist. I think he would be a socialist today. But
yeah,
Paul,
the whole point of
sorry, go ahead.
Is that you care about others, and this isn't caring about others.
What about caring for the people of this country, Paul, and saying that actually the safety, security of people who were born here or who live here or have come here legally is actually something we really need to focus on and keep in mind, because that is the concern that many, many people have?
Well, a lot of the time when you scratch the surface and you get... It's like someone said the other day, once we've deported 600,000 refugees, who will reform blame, and people's lives don't improve after that, who will Reform blame next? Will it be the LGBT community? Will it be this community? Will it be women? Will it be the disabled?
But just to engage with the question, Paul, I just wonder, I mean, and many people would say, you're saying scratch the surface. I would say that there are very legitimate complaints and worries about the fact that there are a lot more people in this country, that it's actually not compassionate to the people of this country because you're not looking after them properly, and actually everybody's life suffers.
But that's what I'm meaning. When you get past that, then a lot of the time Reform don't care about their own. They're always saying, oh, working class people shouldn't be on benefits, that people who were born here... And
well, they've said they would extend they would scrap the two-child benefit cap, Paul.
Well, that's only because they believe in traditional family values and they want to get LGBT people and what have you again, isn't it?
What is your evidence that Reform UK is against LGBT people?
They're horrible. They'd make it illegal to be gay.
No, they wouldn't. No, they've never said that. They've never said that, Paul. Paul, that's not true. They have never said that. They've never said. Well, how do you know if they've never said it?
They'd bring back conversion therapy, I think. That's how bad I think Reform
Well, you might think it, Paul, but they've never, ever said that, and I've never heard...
They want to ban prides that bring so much to the economy. I was at Manchester Pride last weekend, and it was packed, and the HIV vigil was packed, and Reform want to ban all that.
I don't think they want to ban Pride, necessarily. I've never heard them saying ban Pride.
For the economy, Pride, and yet they want to ban...
You want to go to Pride, that's great, that's fine, enjoy Pride. I've marched in 2 Pride parades, well, marched in one and attended another one. I've no issue with it. My point is, Paul, just listen 1 second, I promise you I'll let you have your say. I have been around dozens of Reform people, politicians. I'm not a member of that party. I don't know. I feel politically homeless. I don't know whether I vote for Reform UK. I'm not defending them. What I'm saying is, I'm telling you my experience of being around an awful lot of Reform people. A lot of deal with politicians from all parties, but particularly Conservatives, Labour, and Reform would be the 3 main ones that I'm around a lot. I have never heard a Reform UK person make a homophobic comment. I'm not saying that I'm sure there are people in every political party who've made homophobic comments, but I don't think there's a scrap of evidence that Nigel Farage, Richard Tice, or anybody else dislike gay people.
Well, to be honest, I'd extend it to Conservatives and Labour, and there's a petition going on now for the government to give... it's gaining a lot of traction online.
But what's your evidence, Paul? You've no evidence. It's a feeling.
We need the Lib Dems and Greens and Jeremy Corbyn's parties to get more say. Labour, Reform and Conservatives dominate this conversation so much, and they're all so right-wing. They're all... Labour are anti-LGBT now, the Conservatives are anti-LGBT.
But where's your evidence for that, Paul? Paul, you're saying what you believe, and that's fine, but there's no evidence for it.
The LGBT community doesn't like these 3 parties. They banned them from Pride.
That's fine, but where is there evidence that they're homophobic?
There's loads, because they just want to...
Okay, give me one example.
Wanting to be terrible to trans people, for a start, and trans people are part of our community. We're not LGBT.
How do they want to be terrible to trans people?
Well, for a start, with telling them they should go back in the bathrooms at the biological sex. That's awful.
Why is it awful? Why is that an awful thing?
They've actually transitioned, and they could get abuse in the other toilet.
What about the people? What about the people who are the sex they're born with? The vast majority of people who want to use those toilets and want people of their biological sex to do that too.
Well, some of them could have an ulterior motive, lesbians, but then lesbians are...
Well, they could, but the fact is that you can transition.
Women can be as dangerous as men, can't they? I mean,
yeah.
we pick and choose. We're wanting to send women and children back, aren't we? Because they're dangerous as well. You can't pick and choose.
Paul, it's fascinating to talk to you, Paul, but I just don't think you have a lot of evidence for what you're saying. I do appreciate your call. That's Paul in Bolton there. Thank you. Let's speak to Eric in Newport, who wants to talk about national service. Eric, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, it always seems you won't get the working class going to fight for this country. You know, I'm working class. I'm 70 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather done 2 tours in Ypres. My father was in the Second World War. So when they come back, you'll find that they throw the working class to the wolves. But your middle class, you're educated, they're nowhere to be seen, Peter. Nowhere to see. And then you just look at the soldiers which have come into the army, and every government, Conservative, Labour, have treated our soldiers who've come home like absolute rubbish.
And there are...
You've got to be honest.
We've got to do better by our veterans, Eric, don't we?
Sorry?
We've got to do better by our veterans, don't we? We've got to treat them with the absolute, generosity and really appreciate their service to this country.
And you've got to look after them. You know, the soldiers come in and they're just disregarded, aren't they? Let's be honest about it. Do you know what I mean? And the well-educated, the middle class and all that, their parents won't put them on the...
they'll do all they can to get out of it. Well, look at Vietnam. There are loads of people who dodged the draft. I mean, you can have the discussion about whether the Vietnam War should have happened or not, but there are an awful lot of middle-class people who did all sorts of things to dodge the draft. Eric, thanks for your thoughts there. Really appreciate you joining us on the programme today. Let's get a couple of voice notes now. Let's hear from Kelvin, who wants to talk about 16-year-olds and about the Archbishop as well. A couple of topics in his message. This is what Kelvin says.
Good morning, Peter. Just a quick one. No, I don't think 16-year-olds should be allowed to vote. Not with what these teachers are pumping into them anyway. They're the cause of this. These who are teaching now, the left wing, they're just idiots that are teaching the kids. So no, we don't want them voting. It's causing all this climate change rubbish because the kids bloody believe what they're being told. On the Archbishop, no, not only should he shut up, he should open all his churches and everything up to migrants, and that's where we should be putting them all. He wants them here, and he wants to let them in. Let him have them. He can have all the rapists and killers and everything in his places, But no, he won't open them up. That's how much he wants them here, Otherwise, he would open them, wouldn't he? Same with mosques. They should be put in mosques as well, because Muslims want them here as well. And most of them are their fellow mates anyway. So why don't they put them up in their mosque? It wouldn't cost us a penny then. Just an idea. Bye.
Kelvin, thanks for your thoughts. Obviously, we don't know that every single Muslim wants asylum seekers here. We also know that every asylum seeker is not a killer or a rapist, but there are some, and Kelvin is correct in what he says. Thank you to this person. Just on the schools point, this person's texted and says, would you trust schools to teach kids about elections and voting? If they did, wouldn't the majority be persuaded to be lefties? We need to get wokeness out of schools, which I'm sure also promotes the increase of anxiety, ADHD, etc. I am absolutely for what Americans call civics lessons. Now, this may sound very pointy-headed and boring, but actually saying, OK, you're a citizen, here are your responsibilities. Not your rights, your responsibilities as a citizen. It's little tiny things. It's don't put your feet in the seats and trains, don't litter, vote. That is something that we should all do because it's a really important thing. Even if you're spoiling your ballot paper and writing none of the above in, turn up, do it, make people know what you think, and find a party that you're happy with, or else write none of the above or spoil your ballot. There are certain things we've got to do as citizens. We've got to, the social contract has to be there. Yeah, we've got to pay our taxes. What do we get for that? Well, not very much at the moment, but there are so many students in schools who just are, I really feel lost, actually, and I think this survey today in the Sunday Times shows how lost they are. Well, let's give them a bit of belonging. Let's tell them what's good about their country, and let's make this country a place we can be proud of. I know that's perhaps idealistic, but I think it can be done. And I think when people have a stake in our society, I know there's so many people who watch and listen to this programme who really feel they want the country to be better. Yeah, we're exasperated, we're annoyed at so much that has gone on. There are many people who are annoyed with the Archbishop this morning. There are many people who say migration needs to be sorted. It absolutely does. But they're coming from a position of wanting to make our country better. And I see that as a positive thing. And if we can teach positivity to our kids and say, have a stake in society, care about this country, well then this country will be a better place. Lots more to discuss. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Coldplay have big concerts at Wembley. There are loads of people from right across the country and beyond who will be coming to them. But now there's a massive problem, and that is that the unions have said that they're going to have a tube strike on those days. Coldplay, the band themselves, have postponed the concerts. They have said that actually if you can't get people there safely and away from it safely, especially at night, that this is going to be a huge problem. My fellow presenter Samara Gill's been looking into this. Samara, thanks for joining me today. Just take us through what has actually happened here, because there's loads of people who are going to lose loads of money as a result of this, hotels, transport and the rest of it.
Yeah, the fans are not happy, Peter. I mean, basically, two of their main shows have been gone, totally rescheduled and cancelled. And it's because London simply can't run a transport system. The tube strikes, which are planned on Friday, the 5th of September, and then continuing through to the 11th of September, each day, different staff groups will walk out. It's going to cause really, really widespread chaos, unpredictable disruption, and it just makes London kind of look like a third world city that can't get it together. I mean, I've got to pin this all on Sadiq Khan, because this isn't a problem with the concert. It isn't a problem with Wembley. They knew about these. I mean, Sadiq Khan knew about these tube strikes.
And Wembley, as you say, Samara, I mean, this is a world-class facility. This is a major band, yes, known across the world. Loads of people will have made a huge financial sacrifice. I know of someone was messaging me last night about this, saying, we didn't go on a foreign holiday this year because we're spending a few days in London, money coming into the London economy, going to, obviously, the tickets for this concert will be quite expensive for people as well. Coldplay, a band loads of people love. But now this has happened.
No, you're absolutely right. And then we also forget there are people that travel, you know, from different countries around Europe, even America, to go to these concerts because it can be cheaper to go in the United Kingdom than America. So people will travel over and try and, you know, contribute to the tourism, make a whole trip of it. Well, that's now just all cancelled because these militant unions basically run Britain's capital. That's what it seems. And yeah, it's really horrible. I mean, you can see on social media, people are saying we've lost hundreds of pounds. The tickets are non-refundable. There's been lots of bookings that have been wasted.
But the tickets have been moved, haven't they? They've been moved to other dates. But if you've got non-refundable train tickets, plane tickets, hotels, etc., that's going to be a big financial hit. Also, just time off work and things. I mean, at short notice, often people can't change those.
Well, this is what we get when we get a mayor who prioritizes sort of ULEZ and paper straws over what his own people want and Britain's economy. I mean, we forget that Coldplay, or he forgets that Coldplay will be bringing in millions and millions of pounds into our great capital. And apparently, even though he had weeks to think this through, he hasn't sorted it out. So I feel really bad for all the punters and people that wanted to enjoy this that are now having plans slashed and cancelled. And they'll be thinking twice about coming into London anytime again, because it's just so unreliable in this city. I mean, you and me, when you try and go and catch a tube, you don't know whether it's going to be there or not with these endless strikes.
Most of the time it is, but certainly the strikes are a very big deal. Samara, thanks for looking into that for us. That's Samara Gill there, my fellow talk presenter. Let's hear we've got quite a few voice notes, and I want to get through as many of them as I can to get as many people on the air as possible, as I always do. Matt has been in touch, and he's talking about migration. This is what Matt has to say.
Peter, Matt in Hove here. Just a quick note on Nigel Farage's mass deportations and people suggesting that these countries won't take these people back. Well, here's a scenario for you. If you were skint and I was giving you £100 a week allowance because I'm generous, and then I asked you to do me a favour and you said no, what's the first thing I'd do? I'd say, well, there goes your allowance, mate. You just cut all of the foreign aid to these countries until they take back their citizens who are criminals. It's so simple that they'll soon change their tune. Trust me, when there's 150 million not going in their coffers, it really is that simple.
Thank you, Matt, and I'm sure you're delighted about your new neighbour, Angela Rayner, who's just bought a flat in Hove. Are you bringing out the bunting saying, welcome, Angela, great to have you with us? Sharon has been in touch as well about 16-year-olds getting the vote.
Sharon from Yorkshire. This about 16-year-olds voting, I think it's just messing with the system. We've already got parties that have got fractions in different areas, and we've got that many different political sides to it. Nothing's going to get done in this country because it's just going to be overwhelmed with all sorts of different people, and they're all voting for their own parties, and that's good, but we've just got too many of them, and we're never going to get to an end result with anything if we carry on with adding more and more and more people that can vote that's just different opinions and fractions. Good show though. Have a nice day.
Sharon, thank you. Great opinion, and thanks for your kind wishes as well. John in Newcastle says, I just can't believe I've just watched a video of Starmer in opposition saying, does the PM agree that anyone who seeks to avoid paying the tax they're supposed to should not be in office? My goodness, let's get that distributed and hit him with it. Can't wait to see how he lies and manipulates himself out of that one. Leslie in Torbay as well has been in touch, says, still loving the programme, Peter. I've been helping at food banks and shelters for many years. There's so many people who've given up hope, homeless due to no fault of their own. We do as much as we can to help them with food and clothing, but they need somewhere to live. We must start helping our own. I'm sure they would love to be looked after in a warm place with food and money. It's a disgrace. Leslie, thank you for that. And volunteering, I think, is a brilliant thing. Well done for you, helping people who really can't help themselves a lot of the time. Andy's been in touch and says the Archbishop of York is very vocal on things here in the UK, but he or any of the 25 bishops who sit in the Lords have anything to say on the open persecution of Christians in over 15 countries, yet defend illegal immigrants, often from those same places. The Church is focused on UK politics and forgets its message to all Christians. Michelle says, why don't we introduce 16-year-olds to vote by allowing them to apply to vote? I bet hardly any would bother. That's a really interesting point, actually, although I suppose you do have to be in the electoral register. Graham Haitley in Oxworth says there should be different types of national service. For example, there could be government-sponsored apprenticeships, similar to schemes that exist already, and simply put, if you don't take part, then you cannot receive any sort of benefits whatsoever. Sue in Lancashire says, I was diagnosed with anxiety 5 years ago. This was after 30 years in the police, where I managed to get through fine. The worst time of my life, and I couldn't understand, as I was in a good place. It was very difficult to talk about, but I've been on tablets ever since, which has really helped, so I understand what you're going through. Thanks for talking about this, says Sue in Lancashire. Sue, do you know what? I found it was when I stopped. I was at university when I was having severe anxiety, and, you know, doing the whole, you know, going fast, working the student newspaper, you know, doing loads of different things, you know, seeing friends and doing, well, not as much work as I should have been doing, but doing the work for university, all that kind of stuff. It was all that movement, it was all that kind of busyness was fine, but it was when I stopped. It was when it was, you know, Christmas or Easter, and I was just sitting down at home, stopping, and that's when things got really, really difficult for me. Thankfully, all is well now. I take the pills every day, and I'm under the care of a brilliant consultant psychiatrist, great guy called Stephen, fantastic fella. Steve is in Suffolk. Says, all this talk of youngsters who would not take up arms in defence of this country is quite saddening. Lucky for us as a country, the same could not be said during the First and Second World War, so who knows where we would be now. It's the same as badly behaved children get blamed. Blame gets put on ADHD, which appears to be the latest fashion accessory, rather than in many cases poor parenting, says Steve. Well, listen, I do know people who have ADHD. It is a thing, but I do think it is overdiagnosed. Brian in Westcliff says, there are huge issues on the apparent surge in ADHD. My daughter had extensive tests years ago and definitely has it, but recently went for a test. Penny in Essex says, great show, although not good for the blood pressure. How refreshing listening to that young 17-year-old lad. It gives you hope. Let's hear one more voice note before the break. That is from Karen.
Hi, Peter. Alex Burkhart, MP. Oh, it's very depressing that people won't fight for this country. Why would we fight for a country that puts the migrants' needs above the British citizens? What are we fighting for? To leave the country for them? I don't think so. How about those migrants who have come in? They're the first ones to be conscripted into the army. They want to be here so much. They love this country so much. Then they need to fight for it. Because we have had enough. We fought for this country. We sacrificed our loved ones, our ancestors, died for our freedom. But I'm telling you now, I'm not going to die, or should any of my grandchildren or children die for this country to leave it to what? Illegal migrants that don't care about this country? I don't think so. And if they forcibly conscript people, I'm telling you now, they'll have a lot of people going AWOL.
Karen, thanks for your thoughts there. Plenty more opinions coming your way in just a minute here on Talk.
The Russians will only
accept a complete capitulation of Ukraine. And I never tire of reminding people what a very good friend and a senior Ukrainian diplomat said to me in the early days of the war. He said, Cormac, it's very simple. If Russia stops fighting, there will be no war. If Ukraine stops fighting, there will be no Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin has told us, and continuously, that what he aims to do is to wipe Ukraine and Ukrainian identity off the face of the map. He considers it a false country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very annoyingly, Luke, who is our vision mixer and eater of many biscuits, has Coldplay tickets. I asked him to come on the programme. He said no, so very, very sorry that producing-wise we couldn't fix you. Let's hear a voice note now from James.
Hi, Peter. What I don't understand about this Archbishop is most of the people coming don't follow his religion. They follow another stem of religion, don't they? Another brand of religion. So my advice to the Archbishop is look after your own flock, because the people coming here, they really don't care about Christianity.
Thank you, James. Let's hear another voice note from Amber, please.
Disagree with what the Archbishop of York is saying. He says, like, we're only going to be moving the problem and not solving it. Perhaps he should take that preaching to those countries and get the problems solved, you know, there, and get their governments to sort things out in their own countries. We really need to get our own house in order before we start trying to sort out the rest of the world. It's completely ridiculous, this uncontrolled, untold amounts of illegal immigration we get in the UK. We're literally a tiny island nation, and we're going to burst at the seams if it carries on like this. Amber from Manchester.
Amber, thank you. Let's hear from Mark in Lincolnshire. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Mark, great to talk to you today. What are your thoughts on the Bishop?
Hi there, Peter. Yeah, I mean, first things off the top of my head there is, you know, he should maybe concentrate more on the scriptural nourishment of his flock than having a pop at Nigel Farage. You know, this is a bishop who has nothing to say about the tens of thousands of Christians being slaughtered in Nigeria by, funny enough, Muslims. He has nothing to say about the Christians and Druze in Syria. He has absolutely nothing to say about all of these things. He's got plenty to say about Gaza. Mm-hmm. He's got plenty to say about the far right, as he seems to claim it. But, you know, a lot of this, and you get a lot of this from the left as well, and from other Christians who don't really understand the Bible or don't seem to understand the Bible, you know, because they'll always come out with the same thing, which is what this Archbishop and all the others will use, you know, which is the things that, particularly that you find in Matthew, where he talks about loving your neighbour and all this kind of stuff, and, you know, treat your enemy, you know, with kindness and all that kind of stuff. Right, I mean, essentially, in that, it's you may have heard, love your neighbour and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Mm. So it's emphasising responding with love, not malice. What it's not telling you is to expose yourself to it.
Yeah.
Okay? So this is the problem that I have with an archbishop saying stuff like this. Because as a Christian, as an alleged Christian leader, which he isn't, because as far as I'm concerned, these people are apostate anyway. They're separate from God for their other actions anyhow. What they're doing, I mean, the very first thing, the people that are coming, particularly on the small boats, the vast majority of them are Muslim. So as far as he's concerned, that's the first thing in what I've just been saying there, as to why you don't expose yourself to it.
Yeah. It's a very good point. Okay. It's a very good point, Mark. I'm sorry, we're just going to have to leave it there because we do have other callers, but I really appreciate your point. Another Mark, actually, Mark in Lancashire, I want to get in before the end of the programme, has some thoughts as well. Mark, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah, hello, Peter. I just wanted to say that, I want to push back about where he was saying that it's Nigel Farage has got no answers to the global problems. Well, I really don't think that's his job. In fact, I think we've had too many prime ministers who have actually been globalists, and we need more of a nationalist.
Well, that's a really good point, actually, because lots of people say Starmer spends, Keir spends far too much time on the global stage and actually dealing with the internal problems of this country. Yes, of course, they're about people coming from abroad, but it's specifically our borders that need to be secured because they're not already, Mark.
Yeah, well, that's it, exactly. I mean, going back to Tony Blair, I mean, Blair was
let's never do that.
Well, yeah, but he was one of the first prime ministers who sort of put his place on the international stage, being an international statesman.
Well, I mean, Churchill won the war.
Yeah, but Blair sort of put it in front of everything else. He sort of, you know, he wanted to solve the world's problems.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Us with migrants, get involved in Iraq.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Cameron getting involved in Libya. David Cameron was also a globalist. Theresa May also a globalist.
Okay.
The only one that we've had who possibly wasn't a globalist would have been Truss, and they got rid of her, didn't they? She didn't last 5 minutes. So
well, there are lots of other reasons for that as well, Mark, not least her tremendously bad management of the economy. Mark, thanks for your thoughts. Mark in Lancashire there. David in Cheshire says, the Archbishop is talking rubbish. Most immigrants are from Muslim countries and want Islam to take over. The Archbishop is like a turkey voting for Christmas. We are a democratic sovereign nation. We can't wait 4 years to get them out. There won't be any UK left. Cardi P, when will the Archbishop be announcing how many migrants the Church is going to house and support? Dean says, I'm a veteran. I would fight to protect my family, but not for this government. Adrian says on Alex Burghardt, who you spoke to, the Conservative you spoke to earlier, the reason people turn away from politics, spineless, has no opinions, says Adrian in Northern Ireland. Paul and Milton Keynes, tell Alex Burghardt his party has a 16 to 18% poll rating. Reform is polling 35%. The Conservatives do not have the answer to immigration. They're guilty of increasing the numbers massively during their 14 years in government. Let's hear a couple more voice notes. This one from Glenn on National Service.
Good morning, Peter. It's Glenn from Crewe. Can we not change the name of the service that we are going to be asking youngsters from doing from National Service and have them doing something to help the actual country? Change the name of it, possibly call it Reserve Service, where they're helping people in the community rather than just being soldiers. I think this might help a little bit. Take care, fella. Good, great show. Bye.
Thank you very much indeed, Glenn. Steve in the West Country says, regarding the Archbishop of York, a middle-aged man who believes in fairy tales has more land than anyone and houses no migrants. To quote the great Catherine Tate, am I bothered, says Steve. Am I bothered? Does my face look bothered? Nick says, I don't understand how you say you suffer from anxiety. You're on national TV and radio every week. You're an interviewer and an author. I thought anxious people were shy, introverted and a bag of nerves. You're none of those. Nick, I could talk all day about this. Thanks for your message. The point is, the reason I can do this is because I'm being treated for it. I couldn't do it if I wasn't being treated for it. I don't suffer from it anymore because I take a pill every day to stop me suffering from it. But certainly there were times when, I remember being at a friend's house and being so anxious I couldn't take part in a conversation with friends I had known for 5 years. I just sat there quietly. They said, is something wrong with you? You're very quiet today. That doesn't often happen. Certainly doesn't happen these days, I can tell you. June has been in touch with a voice note.
Do you really expect the youngsters to fight for this country when Starmer's just said immigrants have got more rights than we have? The way this country's treating them, now you want to call up all the youngsters. Are all the immigrants that want to be British, are they going to be called up as well? I think it's absolutely disgusting. And when they're called up, what they're going to do? Start a war so they send them all off as well, leaving us with all these immigrants? Yeah, I bet you won't put that on the TV.
Well, we just have. Richard has been in touch as well. Final voice note of the day.
Hi, Peter. Richard in Corby. Paul's got that totally wrong. They don't want to ban Pride. They just don't want the taxpayer funding it.